Chapter 859, God Emperor Realm. Tao patterns appeared on 9 Underworld Mountain. A vast and powerful aura suddenly descended, shattering the demonic clouds and suppressing the divine pulse. However, compared to the destructive attack of the divine seal, the Emperor's aura on Ling Zhao's body was indescribably shocking. Demon Emperor Long Xian had been sealed for 1,000 years. Although she looked like a young girl now, all the demons knew that she was even older than the Blue Dragon Emperor. 1,000 years of suppression had indeed caused her cultivation to drop, but her bloodline talent was almost heaven-defying. Invincible divine aura was not just for show. However, how old was the saint? He did not look more than 20 years old, but he was also a God Emperor. Ridiculous. It was simply unbelievable. Throughout the long history of the Shengzhou, there were countless people with amazing talents. But how many of them could enter the God Emperor realm at the age of 20? Furthermore, anyone with eyes would be able to see that Ling Zhao's Tao power was far more powerful than Long Xian's. It was extremely strange and could be said to be miraculous. It was just too sudden. All the demons felt that they did not understand the word invincible well enough. This was too ridiculous. No matter how heaven-defying one's talent was, cultivation had to be done step by step and experience time. Even if a 20-year-old young man started cultivating from birth, how could he break through the layers of shackles and reach the peak of the world? No wonder he was so arrogant. He was not showing off. He was confident. Please note that these were two completely different states. Showing off and slapping people's faces was using an extremely low status and background to defeat a superior. Did the saint of the sacred sect need to show off? He used his own strength to slap our faces into smithereens. Somehow, the Blue Dragon Emperor still felt that she was too careless today. If she could not kill this young man, in the future, the demon race would be completely dominated by fear. Fortunately, he was only 20 years old. Is this the young master's true strength? Nine Nether and the others were also shocked, especially when she first met Ling Xiao. He was only in the Xianqing stage and hadn't comprehended a trace of the power of loss. If everyone knew that Ling Xiao had stepped into the God Emperor realm from the profound, clear stage in less than 2 years, do you think they would be scared to death? What was invincible? What was invincible? The Lord Ling Xiao is without equal. Young master strength? Beside Nine Nether and the others, Liang Yi suddenly sneered. This is just the tip of the iceberg of young master strength. Whether it was the God the Arch Realm or the power of Tao laws, they were merely young master's cultivation on the surface. What was truly terrifying about him was his sky demon body. It was not only the sky demon's battle prowess and methods, but also his control over the billions of living beings in the 9 heavens. One day, when his lord stood at the top of the world and no longer feared the ancient gods of the immortal race, Liang Yi believed that there would be countless supreme experts waking up from their deep slumber and groveling at his feet once again. And this was the truly terrifying part of the sky demon. Even if he had fallen and died for tens of thousands of years, there would still be believers waiting for him to return. He, the evil dragon general, was just an inconspicuous demon general among the millions of demon disciples. Moreover, his cultivation had dissipated, and he could not reincarnate. He no longer had any demonic power. The reason why the Sky Demon Palace was called the strongest in the 9 heavens was not just because of the 4 venerables, 5 emperors, 7 kings, and 9 generals. There were also the countless living beings in the universe who followed the Sky Demon as their Tao. Tip of the iceberg, Nine Nether's face trembled. But when she saw the calmness in Hua Hua, Xiong Huan, and the other's eyes, she swallowed her exclamation. In the end, I am just a servant in his lord's eyes. In the void, the golden river flowed, and the divine seal flew. Facing this seal, even Long Xian's eyes flashed with intense shock. At this moment, she suddenly realized that this young man was not arrogant. Instead, he had the unparalleled power to crush an entire generation. So what if you are a God Arch? So what if you are Tao laws? I have the true dragon's sacred bone and am a god of this world. You are no match for me." In the end, Long Xian shouted. The golden light that was originally winding under her feet suddenly turned into a divine screen, completely enveloping her body. Roar! The deafening roar of a dragon resounded. Endless divine light shot in all directions, vaguely forming the shape of a dragon that collided with the divine seal of Tao. I am the true dragon, invincible in this world. No matter how powerful your techniques are and how much talent you have, in my eyes, you are just an ant that I can casually crush. The rumbling roar was like rolling thunder, shocking everyone's hearts. Outside Long Xian's body, runes of the great Tao alternated, and the spiritual aura of heaven and earth gathered. She stood there like a blazing sun, and also like a god, exuding an unparalleled divinity. The saint of the sacred sect, today I will kill you. This is the will of the heavens. From now on, I, Long Xian, will be the strongest in this world. At this moment, the sky shook, and the heavenly punishment descended. Countless people widened their eyes as they watched the divine seal and the dragon's shadow collide, emitting a searing light that pierced one's soul. It was obvious that no matter who won today, the title of invincible would be confirmed. Heaven and earth turned upside down, and the sun and moon lost their radiance. Tens of thousands of rays of light shot down, destroying the ancient mountains and killing all living beings. Even some of the powerful demon clan cultivators standing in the mountains did not have time to react before their souls were shattered by the aftershock of the collision. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of the great path and the dragon's roar continued to spread. In a radius of 10,000 miles, there was no spirit chi, and all the rules were destroyed. Rays of dazzling light streaked across the sky like stars and landed in all directions, setting the ancient forests on fire and crumbling the barren mountains. Very good. It is your honor to die in my hands. Long Xian gritted her teeth. At this moment, she also felt immense pressure. The runes around her moved, and a terrifying and heavy aura exuded from her bones. Then, her jade-like hands formed another seal, turning into 100 feet long golden dragon that bit at the divine seal. Is that so? Ling Xiao smiled. His black robe fluttered in the wind, and his expression was extremely calm. At this moment, Long Xian was obviously being suppressed by him, but she was still as domineering as ever. Long Outhian's template was indeed unyielding, and he would fight anyone he saw. Sadly, Long Xian had already used her trump card. All she could rely on now was the true Dragon Bone's powerful recovery ability. However, Ling Xiao's trump card was never the laws and cultivation level. What you think of as invincible is only what you think. The world is vast, and the path to becoming a celestial being is boundless. There have been countless talents since the beginning of time. How many dared to call themselves invincible? Only I, Ling Xiao. Buzz. Suddenly, the demonic blade in Ling Xiao's hand shone brightly. He stepped forward slowly, and a green lotus bloomed under his feet. Endless primordial light swirled around him. Right now, there was no trace of demonic intent on him. However, the arm that held the blade was covered in black scales. In the end, it turned into a pitch-black, demonic arm. It was terrifying. If I want to kill you, one strike is enough. Chapter 860. Buzz. The sound of a saber rang in the sky, piercing everyone's eardrums. The immortal and Buddhist Tao voices in the ears of the monsters disappeared almost instantly. Thousands of demonic shadows seemed to descend in front of everyone, standing in the sky and looking down at the world. However, what was terrifying was that the demonic shadows didn't contain any demonic intent. On the contrary, a transcendental Tao and immortal intent spread in the sky. The spirit chi that had gathered around Long Xian suddenly seemed to be stagnant. Meanwhile, Ling Xiao's Tao aura rose, as if he were an immortal god. Even though his arms were ferocious and his black robe was evil, the Tao and immortal intent were inexplicably felt. It was extremely contradictory, but it also contained the truth. The immortal source was a supreme treasure given to mortals by the ancient gods. Now that Ling Xiao had merged with it, it was enough to shock the world. Moreover, he didn't use any sky demon intent right now. He only used his spirit force to perform the saber art. Even a divine master wouldn't be able to tell, let alone the Blue Dragon Emperor and the others. Of course, Ling Xiao couldn't really use the true power of the Samsara demonic blade and the unforgiven battle armor with his current strength. In fact, even if Ling Xiao used all his strength, the unforgiven battle armor could only show a trace of its true form. It was hard to imagine what would happen when Ling Xiao completely broke the seal of the two treasures one day. What kind of peerless appearance would it be? Primordial, heaven-punishing, evil god. Ling Xiao raised his hand gently and slashed the Samsara demonic blade. The sky suddenly darkened as if the sun had sunk. All the light was extinguished at this moment. Then, everyone saw that the space where the blade passed was torn apart, like a portal to another world or an abyss of the 9 underworlds, spewing out endless darkness. At the end of the darkness, a 1,000-foot-tall demonic shadow suddenly opened its eyes. Boom! Boundless darkness instantly swallowed up the sky. Only the young man, shrouded in darkness, had a divine look on his fair face. It was an extreme glow, like the birth of the universe and the first ray of heaven and earth. Immediately after, the evil shadow arrived, covering the sky and the sun, enveloping the universe era within. Everyone, including the Blue Dragon Emperor, felt small and pitiful in front of that evil shadow. Some of the weaker demons were even shaken to the core, bleeding from their 7 orifices. Their divine souls were shattered, and their internal organs were ruptured by this world-destroying saber radiance. Ow! How could this be? All of the arrogance on Long Xian's face disappeared. She stared blankly at the evil shadow that was descending and destroying everything. She watched as it turned into a blade and turned into a shadow. She was unable to react. She sensed the aura of the great Tao from where the blade passed. Once the saber was unleashed, the ancient emptiness would descend. Immortals, Buddhas, ghosts, and devils all entered the cycle of reincarnation. No, it was only when the blade radiance covered the entire area and fell from the sky that Long Xian's body lit up with an extremely beautiful golden divine sun. An ear-piercing dragon roar resounded. However, in the endless darkness, this strand of golden light was like a lonely boat in the desolate sea. It encountered a storm and could capsize at any time. Long Xian raised her jade-like hands to the sky. Her arms seemed to be made of real gold, and an ancient and heavy aura was awakened. A wave of blood chi that was visible to the naked eye surged out. However, before the saber radiance fell, the Blood Sea King's sun had already shattered from middle. Long Xian's arms were directly shattered by the saber intent. Even her bones were broken. Boom! Finally, the evil shadow descended and completely enveloped Long Xian's body. The Blue Dragon Emperor's eyes narrowed. She seemed to hesitate. He had witnessed Long Xian's strength with his own eyes, especially her heaven-defying recovery ability. Even a 9th-grade God Emperor like him was terrified. Ling Xiao was very strong, so strong that it was terrifying. However, in the Blue Dragon Emperor's eyes, Long Xian was not weak either. Both of them were invincible. However, at the same time, if he acted rashly today, even if he saved Long Xian, this new Empress Dao heart would be completely shattered. The path of immortality was like a sword crossing a river. There was no turning back. Moreover, the Blue Dragon Emperor had a selfish motive in his heart. If Long Xian really wanted to rebel against the sacred sect, how could she defy the heavens if she could not even defeat a sacred disciple? Heaven and earth fell silent. Everyone looked at the place where the black light fell with a shocked expression and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. If it were any 5th or 6th grade God Emperor, they would have been crushed by this attack. Even though the monsters knew of Long Xian's talent, they still felt a chill in their hearts, especially when they saw Ling Xiao's calm and carefree expression. Many monster kings felt an inexplicable sense of respect towards him. With such a prodigy from the human race, the Shengzhou would probably still not belong to the monster race in the next 500 years. Ling Zhao's strength had already surpassed the limits of his peers. Even the Monster Kings knew that they would not be able to escape unscathed from this attack. Invincible, Ling Zhao shook his head and smiled. He slowly descended from the sky. Immortal intent flowed around his body and turned into thousands of divine elephants. Roar! At that moment, a furious roar suddenly sounded from where the black light shone. Then, a golden figure stepped out and reappeared in front of everyone. Longxian no longer looked as domineering as before. Half of her body had been completely crushed by the evil god's blade style. A layer of dense golden scales shone on the surface of her skin. The broken bones in her arm were slowly healing. But this time, the healing speed was clearly much slower. A black light flowed around the wound and corroded it. It was obviously suppressing the power of the dragon bone in Longxian's body. You're very strong. Even in the ancient era, your talent is enough to look down on the world. Longxian lowered her head and panted heavily. Even her tone was filled with an indescribable coldness and depression. And then, Ling Zhao's eyes were indifferent, and a gentle smile hung on his face from beginning to end. What a pity. Today, you will still become a stepping stone on my path to invincibility. Boom! Longxian suddenly raised her head. Her eyes turned blood red. A layer of dense and ancient dragon scales instantly covered his entire body. The mystical runes that were originally engraved on her body also emitted a demonic glow. Endless demonic aura shot up into the sky and turned into clouds. Layers of fog floated in the mountains, surging and obscuring everyone's vision. Under the fog, a strange and ferocious aura spread. It was not the aura of a dragon, but more like an extreme resentment. Ling Zhao raised his eyebrows, and a playful look appeared in his eyes. It was obvious that Long Outyan's version of Tianming was about to use her strongest trump card. Of course, if not for the overflowing sky talisman, it would not be easy to kill Longxian given her providence. But now, in Ling Zhao's eyes, Longxian was just a ripe leek that was waving and shouting at him. Come on, let's have fun. Buzz! Finally, a completely golden arm stretched out from the fog. It tore through the world, broke through the fog, and appeared in front of everyone. Chapter 861. Hiss, hiss. Suddenly, a series of gasps could be heard from the peak of the 9 underworld mountain. At the end of the fog, a strange monster that looked like a dragon stepped through the air and stood above Ling Zhao's head. Longxian's originally beautiful face was now covered in fine and terrifying scales. A long red tail extended from her back, and flames rose from it, as if it was filled with magma. There was even a pair of long green wings that stretched out on his arms. They covered the sky and were covered with thin, long, and dark fur. At this moment, she was not a demonic beast at all. She was more like a ferocious demon pieced together. Human, you should be proud to be able to force me to use this form. Longxian lowered her head and looked at her current physical body. Her eyes were filled with hatred. She was originally a lowly earth dragon of the northern border. She was ugly and had been mocked and looked down on by everyone. Until one day, she found a 10,000-year-old fire crystal in a secret realm in the mountains. After swallowing it, she experienced the pain of being burned by the fire for 1,000 days. Only then did she complete her transformation and become a famous genius of the monster race. Longxian originally thought that the time of being looked down on was finally over. However, she never expected that her talent would attract even more jealousy and hatred. What right did a little demon from the mountains have to possess supreme glory? What's more, she was an ugly and lowly earth dragon. Although Longxian had a trace of the dragon race's bloodline, in the entire Shengzhou, all the monster race that was related to the dragon race were proud and arrogant. Why would they treat her as one of them? In the end, Longxian was captured by the immortal race because she had comprehended the law of fire. She was turned into a formation and suffered for countless years. But because of this endless suffering, not only did it not destroy her willpower, It made her thirst for power even more. Now, she was the monster emperor and was worshipped by thousands of monsters. How could she be defeated by a human youth? Although being invincible was the end of the road, at the end of the immortal path, which one would not be empty. And then, Ling Xiao smiled and raised his head to look at the ugly but abnormally terrifying demon shadow. At this moment, there were countless mystical scenes appearing around Long Xian. The power of the five elements was the foundation of the Tao laws of the world. Now that Long Xian had merged it into one, it reflected the power of the heavens and earth. Then you should die. Long Xian stretched out a long snake and licked her lips. In the next moment, before Ling Xiao could react, he turned into an afterimage and descended from the sky. The dragon's roar shook the heavens, and the blue dome of heaven collapsed. An ancient aura surged from her bloodline and bones. Behind Long Xian, there was a sea of fire that burned everything. There was a 1,000-foot wave that washed away the ancient times. There was a divine tree holding up the sky, supporting the sun and breaking the moon. A great mountain fell from the west, suppressing the 10 lands. On the other hand, her foot that descended from the sky actually transformed into the image of an ancient dragon that pierced through space, and it carried the might to crush the cycle of reincarnation as it descended forcefully towards Ling Xiao's head. Endless space cracks spread out for thousands of miles. The entire 9 underworld mountain seemed to have sunk 1,000 feet under this foot and sank into the ground. To put it bluntly, Long Xian's foot had already surpassed the limit of what a divine emperor's body could withstand. The reason why the demon race could remain standing for so long was because their physical strength was countless times stronger than that of the human race. Moreover, Long Xian now controlled all the power of the 5 elements. This foot really did have the power of the heavens and earth. However, facing this terrifying attack that was like a falling star, Ling Xiao's face still showed no signs of fear. It was about time. The commotion here had already spread throughout the entire northern border. It was time for the second divine envoy to appear. From the beginning to the end, Ling Xiao had never taken this new demon race emperor seriously. After all, what was the use of being talented? In the entire 9 heavens, who could be as talented as the sky demon? The reason why heavenly fate was so terrifying was because of the karma of the great Tao and the protection of providence. Without providence, no matter how talented one was, it was not worth mentioning in Ling Xiao's eyes. Buzz! Lightning suddenly shone brightly on Ling Xiao's arm. Under the endless silver light, the unforgiven demonic armor quietly covered him. Regardless of whether it was the sky demon's second revolution divine power or the power of the demonic armor itself, how could a mere divine emperor resist? A golden dragon descended from the heavens, looking down on the world. The vast draconic might of the heavens rippled outwards, shattering the space into pieces. When Long Xian's figure fell, the strange phenomenon in the void suddenly froze. Then, everyone was dumbstruck when they saw that the figure of the demon emperor, who carried 10,000 Tao, was actually held in the air by the young man, who was dressed in black and had a fairy-like appearance. Ling Xiao raised his hand and grabbed Long Xian's jade-like foot tightly. There was extreme indifference in his eyes. "In my eyes, you are just an ant." Crack! The crisp sound of broken bones quietly resounded throughout the entire world. Then, Ling Xiao pulled forcefully with his hand and directly pulled Long Xian down from the sky, slamming her heavily onto the ground. "Impossible! Impossible! How can I lose to you? I don't believe." Screams continuously sounded. The Blue Dragon Emperor and the others looked at Long Xian, whose body was being destroyed by Ling Xiao's punches, with indescribable fear in their eyes. "I don't believe it." A terrifying aura surged in Long Xian's body. A 5-colored ray of light suddenly bloomed from her back. The ray of light contained an indescribable divine brilliance. As for Long Xian's shattered body, it was healing at an unimaginable speed. Huff! The Blue Dragon Emperor and the others who were about to take a step forward stopped again. Long Xian's undying body was her invincible reliance. Although the strength Ling Xiao displayed today was enough to shock all the demon emperors, he was undefeatable as long as he did not die. No matter how strong Ling Xiao was, he would eventually be exhausted. As long as Long Xian killed him today, her temperament and strength would both improve qualitatively. As expected of a demon emperor, this vitality is too terrifying. Human, you can't kill me. You can't kill me at all. Long Xian's figure was still staggering from Ling Xiao's punches. Every time Ling Xiao's attack landed, it would shatter the 5 elements, Tao power and dragon bone vitality in her body. However, even so, her bloodline vitality did not seem to be affected at all. It was just that her figure was in a slightly sorry state. Can't kill you? You can't really think that you can be immortal with just a dragon bone, right? Ling Xiao shook his head and chuckled. He suddenly extended his hand and grabbed Long Xian's neck without giving her a chance to react. Without this bone, how can you not die? What? Looking at the handsome face that was close to her and the sinister smile on his face, Long Xian's beautiful eyes hardened. A chill suddenly rushed from the bottom of her heart to the top of her head. What do you want to do? Chapter 862. No, even the immortal race cannot kill me. 1,000 years of suppression was just a trial. The greater the setback, the stronger I will become. No one in this world can kill me. You can't kill me. Long Xian roared at the sky. However, her physical body and spiritual energy had already been completely destroyed by Ling Xiao's punches. At this moment, it was more like she was struggling before her death. Human race is saint. Let her go. The eyes of the Blue Dragon Emperor and the others darkened as they looked at Xiong Huan and the others warily. Even with his strength, he felt an inexplicable pressure when he saw that tall and mighty figure. From the beginning, he had never thought that Long Xian would lose. Thus, he had been silently guarding against Xiong Huan's sudden attack. However, at this moment, the Blue Dragon Emperor only felt that it was ridiculous when she saw Demon Emperor Long Xian being held in Ling Xiao's hand. Defeated? How is that possible? Long Xian's strength was not unparalleled in history, but in the entire northern border demon race, she could be considered heaven-defying, especially the true dragon holy aura on her body. It was undying and indestructible. However, the Blue Dragon Emperor suddenly realized that she was wrong. In this short period of time, there were countless talented people who dared to say that they were undefeatable. Let her go. Ling Xiao smiled. In the next moment, he suddenly reached out and inserted his hand into Long Xian's back. A painful roar resounded. Everyone looked at the demon race's new demon emperor, who was struggling in Ling Xiao's hand like a helpless animal. They all swallowed their saliva. In fact, even the Blue Dragon Emperor could not react. She was in a daze until Ling Xiao pulled out the dragon bones from Long Xian's body piece by piece. It was a golden spine. Tao patterns flowed on it, and it was dazzling. It was like a heavenly treasure. No! Long Xian screamed in despair. Her face was filled with fear and death. She could not understand. How could she be so easily suppressed by a human youth after 1,000 years of suppression and the fusion of the 5 marks? The true dragon's bones were the true supreme creation of this world. Furthermore, back then, the immortals had slain a dragon and dug out its bones to suppress a 9 sky demon. She was chosen by the heavens, so how could she fall so easily? Holy Sun! The Blue Dragon Emperor's eyes were filled with shock. However, when she saw the golden dragon bone in Ling Xiao's hand, the hesitation in her heart suddenly disappeared. At this moment, he was not in a hurry to make a move. His mind was full of thoughts. From the looks of it, the saint of the sacred sect might be the true protagonist of this world. However, no matter how talented he was or how terrifying his methods were, he was still just a teenager. It would not be too difficult for the Blue Dragon Emperor to kill him. And if he could fuse that dragon bone into his body, would he have a chance to reach the peak of the world and compete with the divine masters? The path to immortality was ancient, and what everyone sought was good fortune. Since Long Xian was unable to lead the demon race back to glory, someone had to bear the responsibility. Invincible, Ling Xiao looked at the blood-stained dragon bone in his hand and shook his head with a smile. Then, without giving Long Xian any chance to speak, he exerted force and crushed her neck. Crack! At the same time, the soul light in Ling Xiao's eyes suddenly shone brightly and swallowed Long Xian's divine soul. Beep! Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Daughter of Destiny. You have received 6,000 luck points and 60,000 villain points. Beep! Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Daughter of Destiny. You have received the 5 Elements Tao Law. Beep! Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Daughter of Destiny. You have received the grade 8 Xianming 9 Abandonment Elixir. Beep! Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Daughter of Destiny. You have received the grade 9 Qi Transformation Divine Talisman. It can conceal all aura around the host for 1 month. Beep! Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Daughter of Destiny. You have received 3% of the Destiny Forging points. Hearing the series of system notifications, the corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up slightly. He casually put the dragon bone into his universe ring, but his eyes flickered with a hint of playfulness. Compared to the reward for killing Long Xian, what made him more excited was that he saw traces of another demonic bone in Long Xian's memories. There was a demonic bone sealed at the bottom of the 10,000 Demons Sacred Mountain. The dragon bone in Long Xian's body was placed in the array by the celestial race's powerful cultivators to suppress the demonic bone. Ling Xiao was not interested in the dragon bone at all. However, given the power of the dragon bone, if he gave it to she might have a chance to devour the dragon soul. According to Ziyin, the dragon soul was where the luck of this world lay. The power it contained must be vast and terrifying. Even if Ling Xiao had the body of a sky demon, it would be difficult for him to devour all of it with his current strength. After all, since the celestial race dared to leave the dragon soul in this world, they must be confident that with the shackles of the heavenly Tao in this world, no one would be able to fuse with the dragon soul. However, the dragon bone's power was undying and indestructible. Even if Shi Er's physical body was destroyed, it would be reborn endlessly. It seemed that this dragon bone might be the true opportunity to fuse with the dragon soul. No wonder Long Xian's luck was so high. However, it was a pity that she met Ling Xiao before she could become the true Daughter of Destiny. What? You want me to fuse with the dragon bone and devour the dragon soul? Are you kidding me? I don't have any luck. Of course, I'll let the leak do such a dangerous thing. Shi is so innocent. What bad intentions can she have? As for the dragon soul, who knows if it still has a divine consciousness? Stealing Shi is much easier than dealing with an ancient, powerful cultivator. Damn! The saint of the sacred sect. You dare to kill our demon emperor. The blue dragon emperor shouted angrily. However, she still had no intention of attacking. She did not care whether Long Xian died or not. What she cared about was the future of the demon race. Or rather, whether she could become the true ruler of this world in the future. However, since Ling Xiao dared to kill Long Xian, he must have something to rely on. Given this young man's temperament, the 9 Underworlds mountain was definitely a tiger's den. Of course, as long as the Divine Master was not here, no matter how many tricks he had, they were meaningless to the Blue Dragon Emperor. In front of absolute power, all schemes were useless. The sacred sect has gone too far. Kill them. Avenge the Demon Emperor. The Blue Dragon Emperor waved her hand. Behind her, the demons' faces were filled with extreme hatred. Demonic clouds rose into the sky. A foul wind suddenly swept across the sky above the 9 Underworld mountain. Boom! Countless demonic shadows descended from the sky, carrying with them the power to shatter the heavens. They were about to pounce towards Ling Xiao. However, surprisingly, Ling Xiao did not move. Xiong Huan and the others did not move either. In fact, they even had mocking expressions on their faces. Boom! Just as the demons descended, An ear-piercing, buzzing sound came from the sky. Then 10,000 bolts of lightning shot into the sky, instantly shattering the demonic clouds. They turned into formation runes that trapped the space within 100 miles. The Blue Dragon Emperor's eyes narrowed. A dark look appeared on her face. A formation. Chapter 863. Lightning flashed at the peak of 9 Underworld's mountain. Countless formation runes surged into the sky, shrouding the demons. Beneath the lightning array, thousands of purple lightning bolts meandered about. They were like lightning dragons that could destroy the world. It was a shocking sight. However, before the monsters could panic, countless figures in blood-red armor appeared from all over the mountain peak. These people were all divine lords and divine kings. They were nothing in the eyes of the monster kings. However, such a number could be said to be a shocking sight. Right after, the blood guards suddenly raised their hands and set up spirit crossbows. Circulating their spirit energy, they pointed at the demons from afar. Shoot! Ling Xiao smiled and threw Long Xin's body to flower. With flowers devouring talent, these monsters' bloodlines and demonic cores were much more valuable than spirit pills. Whoosh! Whoosh! Tens of thousands of arrows shot out from the sky, densely packed together, causing fear to rise in people's hearts. However, in the face of such an attack, the fear on the demons' faces instantly turned into a sinister sneer. A bunch of divine lords and divine kings wanted to kill the emperor. However, just as the monsters waved their hands and thought that they could easily block the arrows, they saw a flash of light at the end of the arrow. It pierced through the clouds and landed among the monsters. The expressions of the demonic beasts froze, but before they could react, the moment the arrow collided with the demonic light, a green mist suddenly spread out in the void. Some of the demon race experts who were unable to react in time were instantly turned into a pool of blood by the heavenly poison fog. It's poison. It's poison. The monsters were in chaos. Countless figures rushed into the sky to escape the poisonous mist. However, the lightning array above their heads turned into a waterfall of lightning that fell from the sky. Cries of pain and agony rose and fell one after another. The demon clan was aggressive, and there were many of them. Under such an attack, there was no way for the demon clan to escape. In an instant, hundreds of demon clan members died. Suddenly, fear flashed in the eyes of the 8 monster kings. They seemed to remember the grudge left behind by the poisonous centipede emperor when he died. Was this retribution? Ling Xiao stood on the mountain peak with his hands behind his back. He looked up at the rain of blood without any emotion on his face. Kill! The Blue Dragon Emperor's expression changed drastically. She raised her head and glanced at the lightning formation above her head. A hint of fear flickered in her eyes. Even with his strength, under the might of this lightning array, he actually felt a faint pressure. It was obvious that the person who set up this formation was not necessarily weaker than him. Could it be the work of that black-armored general? "You're courting death," shouted the Blue Dragon Emperor coldly. She stepped forward, and a scale-covered palm pressed down on the group of blood guards. The void instantly turned gloomy, and strong winds blew. 100 zhong long dragon palm that seemed to have penetrated through the ages crashed down with a loud bang. Beside Ling Xiao, Xionghuan's expression did not change as he took a step forward to meet the palm. Behind him, a 1,000-foot-tall demonic figure stepped through the air. It stood tall in the sky and directly lifted the dragon palm with the momentum of lifting the heavens. Boom! The moment the two collided, the mountains and rivers shattered and the void collapsed. Golden light flowed down from the sky, blowing away the poisonous fog, revealing a group of panic-stricken demon clan experts. Compared to before, the demons no longer had any arrogance on their faces. In fact, their eyes were filled with intense fear as they looked at the black-robed youth at the peak of the mountain. Who would have thought that a human youth could kill a demon emperor and hundreds of demon clan experts with a wave of his hand? From the beginning to the end, Nine Phantom Mountain did not seem to have wasted a single soldier. Very inexplicably, the demons felt a chill in their hearts. They felt that this trip to 9 Phantom Mountain today was a one-way trip. Boom! But, just as the demons were muttering to themselves in fear, a bright demonic light bloomed among the demons once again. "Ah, great elder, what are you doing? For the holy sect." Boom! Boom! Countless demon clan experts suddenly attacked, but they were not targeting the people of 9 Phantom Mountain. Instead, they attacked their companions beside them. Although the poisonous fog lightning array had killed countless demon clan experts, most of them were divine kings and divine marquises. However, at this moment, under the rash attack of several god emperors, 2 demon kings were immediately severely injured and fell from the sky. However, when the demons regained their senses, they attacked together again and killed the few demon clan traitors on the spot. Ling Xiao was not surprised by this at all. These people were naturally the slaves that he had planted a soul imprint on earlier. Their mission was not to kill the demon clan experts, but to plant a thorn in their hearts. This would make these demon clan members, who seemed to be united, not dare to expose their backs to others so easily. In such a huge battle, the demons would definitely be distracted and afraid of being ambushed. This way, the demon clan's momentum would be completely lost. "Bai Xiang, kill the Holy Sun!" the Blue Dragon Emperor shouted angrily. She suddenly disappeared from the spot and went straight for Xionghuan. The demon clan was completely at a disadvantage in today's battle. Only by killing the Holy Son of the Holy Sect as soon as possible would they have a chance of survival. Beside her, the White Elephant Emperor's eyes narrowed. However, he did not dare to hesitate and waved his hand. "Kill him!" Boom! Several great demons descended from the sky and charged toward Ling Xiao with boundless demon aura. However, just as Ziyan was about to reveal her true form, a smile suddenly appeared on Ling Xiao's face. Then, he held a golden ancient token above his head. "Second Divine Envoy, since you are here, do you really want to watch me die here?" Buzz! A golden sun suddenly bloomed in the sky. It was as if the sun had just risen, emitting a dazzling divine radiance. Yuan Ju's figure appeared out of nowhere and stood in front of Ling Xiao. Her spirit aura crushed mountains and rivers. She blocked the White Elephant Emperor and the 3 Demon King experts by herself. How could she not feel the terrifying divine aura emanating from the divine token in Ling Xiao's hand? The people of the Holy Sect felt as if they had seen the Divine Master. Yuan Ju did not know where the Divine Master had gone, and she had even suspected that there was something wrong with this Holy Sun. However, if she dared to disobey the divine token today, there would be no place for her in the vast Shenzhou state. Moreover, it was obvious that the demon race was about to lose in this battle. Her appearance now was just icing on the cake. There was no risk of her dying. Second Divine Envoy. The White Elephant Emperor stopped in his tracks and looked at the beautiful middle-aged woman in front of him with a surprised expression. "White Elephant Emperor, long time no see." Yuan Ju sighed softly. She was a demon race expert and had a close relationship with Emperor Ming. Naturally, she could not bear to slaughter the northern border demons. However, if the demon race had the upper hand today and killed this holy son of the holy sect, perhaps she could have turned a blind eye and watched the battle from afar. However, with the power of 10,000 demons, she was completely suppressed by a human youth. She had no other choice. The path to immortality was long. Some people sought fame, while others sought benefits. However, she, Yuan Ju, had always sought immortality. "Yuan Ju, do you really want to join forces with the holy sect to slaughter our race? Have you forgotten how Emperor Ming treated you back then?" As soon as the White Elephant Emperor finished speaking, embarrassment flashed across his face. Although he had never heard the Blue Dragon Emperor mention the whereabouts of the Dark Phoenix clan, he had a vague guess. In the end, the disappearance of this clan was arranged by the Divine Master and the Blue Dragon Emperor. If Yuan Ju wanted to hate someone, she would hate the demon race. Chapter 864. They're just serving their own masters. Yuanju shook her head and looked down at Ling Xiao. The saint had always been mysterious. She did not believe that it was the saint who had come to Nine Phantom Mountain because of his arrogance and ignorance. It was rumored that the saint had been taught by the divine master since he was young, and his talent and temperament were monstrous. However, it seemed that his talent was beyond Yuanju's imagination. When a lightning array covered the sky, she instinctively tried to escape. However, she hesitated when she thought of Ling Xiao's battle prowess. He was invincible and had a natural Tao. As long as Ling Xiao did not die, the Shengzhou would still belong to the saint for the next 500 years. As for the Blue Dragon Emperor, Long Xian, and the rest, they were just stepping stones on this young man's path to immortality. Such a person should either be killed in one blow or be sincerely subdued. However, even if they killed him, how could the Blue Dragon Emperor and the rest fight against the Divine Master? With that dragon bone, even the saint had the ability to dig it out of Long Xian's body. How could the Divine Master not know? Moreover, Yuanju saw the Blue Dragon Emperor's hesitation. If he wanted to save Long Xian, he would not sit back and do nothing. However, he only became angry after Long Xian died. How laughable! 300 years ago, this old dragon plotted against the Ming Feng race to become the ruler of the demon race. 300 years later, he watched Long Xian die because of a dragon bone. In his eyes, there was no emotion in this world other than fortune and benefits. Betraying the saint for someone like him? Ridiculous. Looks like you have made your choice. Forget it. The saint has bullied us for 300 years, and today, you killed our new demon emperor. This is an irreconcilable grudge. The Blue Dragon Emperor sighed softly. Her aged eyes were filled with coldness. All demons, listen up. Kill. Boom. Endless demonic aura covered thousands of miles and completely enveloped Nine Phantom Mountain. The Tao patterns collided, and the power of the heavens was vast and colorful. It was inexplicably magnificent. The 8 major demon races and hundreds of powerful cultivators from the 10,000 demon Sacred Mountain immediately stepped forward and landed on the mountain peak. In a short period of time, an infinite amount of terrifying spiritual energy exploded. Spiritual treasures flashed across the sky and emitted destructive light. In the end, Ling Xiao was strong, but Yuanju and Xionghuan were both 9th-level divine emperors. But this was the northern frontier, the world of the demons. Even if Yuanju was able to fight against 10 great god emperors alone, the demon race still had dozens of god emperors who were enough to kill Ling Xiao. Today's situation was one where one of them had to die. There were experts and successors from the various demon races that had fallen in the hands of the saint of the sacred cult. As long as Ling Xiao didn't die, the hatred in their hearts would never be quelled. Of course, the Blue Dragon Emperor's thoughts were completely different from the rest of the demons. Even if all the monsters died in this battle, as long as he could obtain the true dragon's sacred bone, he might be able to step out of the shackles of heaven and earth and reach the supreme realm. Only then could the demon race truly return to its peak. The older you get, the more you fear death. But at the same time, on the path to immortality, the older one was, the more courage one would have to cut off all means of retreat. The prosperity of the world has entered my eyes, and 1,000 years have become a regret. The heavenly Tao is boundless, blocking my path to immortality. Even if he died, he would fight. Becoming a god or reincarnating, he would have no more regrets. Boom, boom. The Blue Dragon Emperor took the first step and pressed her palm down. Above the void, 2 blue dragon shadows pierced through the clouds and descended from the sky. The dragon's roar shook the heavens and earth as it pressed down on Xionghuan. But in the face of this shocking attack, Xionghuan didn't panic at all. He was originally one of the strongest in the world. Even if his cultivation was no longer there, why would he be afraid of a mere dragon? He reached out with both hands and turned into a giant that was thousands of feet long. He actually grabbed the dragon's shadow in his hands. Then, under everyone's stunned gaze, he casually crushed it. Seeing this, the Blue Dragon Emperor's eyes flashed with shock. She turned to look at the demons behind her. Kill the saint. Boom. Among the 8 demon kings, other than the Golden Condor King and the Ash Wolf King, who had teamed up with the White Elephant Emperor to fight against Yuan Zhu, the remaining 6 demon kings instantly revealed their true forms and disappeared. Buzz. Above the void, another figure stepped out. It was Xiao Beifa, Huaheng, Xing Shun, Dream Demon, and Folded Shadow. Now, their cultivation levels had all reached the God Emperor level. The Dark Guards, Blood Guards, and the Evil Dragon Guards, led by Liang, numbered in the tens of thousands. A great battle was about to break out. Terrifying roars resounded for thousands of miles. Endless spiritual power overturned the mountains, turned the universe upside down, and shattered the earth. Even so, the demon race still had the absolute advantage in terms of number of God Emperors. Of course, this situation was already within Ling Zhao's expectations. What he wanted to do today wasn't just to destroy the thousands of tribes in the Northern Territory and restore order here. Ever since the battle at the Sea Emperor Palace, Ling Xiao had always felt uneasy, and this uneasiness was the only flaw that was not within his control. Since he wanted to kill the divine envoy and destroy the saint sect, how could he not remove this flaw? The void above Ling Zhao's head suddenly rippled. Then 4 figures stepped out of the void. Their auras were ancient and terrifying, filled with endless demonic power. They were 4 of the 9 demon kings of the Northern Territory: the Fire Lion King, the Purple Wing King, the Stone Ape King, and the Jade Snake King. These 4 demon kings were all at the 6th or 7th stage. Although they were not as terrifying as the Golden Condor King and the others, they were still not something Ling Xiao could fight against if they worked together. Moreover, the demon race had a long lifespan, and their means were not something that ordinary people could guess. The demon race had always been stronger at the same cultivation level, not only because of their strong physical bodies, but also because of their own foundation. After hundreds or even thousands of years of accumulation, these demon race god emperors' spiritual power was more vigorous. Even if they were shackled by their talents and could not improve further, they could be said to be invincible at the same cultivation level when they went all out. When the 4 demon kings appeared together, even the void trembled inexplicably. Thousands of ripples appeared as if it would collapse at any time. Facing the 4 demon kings, Ling Xiao did not panic at all. Instead, a faint smile appeared on his face. His black clothes were cold, and his celestial appearance was otherworldly. Even though it was a battle of life and death, the 4 demon kings still felt emotional. The human race was the ruler of the Shengzhou. The saint of the sacred sect could really be said to be unparalleled in the world. Saint, sorry for the offense. The Fire Lion King's blood-red hair looked as if it was burning with flames. His cultivation level was at the peak of the 7th stage, and he was only 1 step away from the 8th stage. At this moment, a palm print came down, and a sea of fire seemed to be churning in the sky. It enveloped the sky and enveloped the surroundings and suddenly fell down. Ling Xiao raised his head, and there seemed to be a hint of contemplation between his brows. In his arms, Ziyan's golden eyes were languid. She stretched her body slightly, and it was obvious that she was ready to attack. Although the 4 demon kings were all very powerful, it would not be too difficult for her to kill them as a 9th stage great emperor. She just could not figure out what Ling Xiao was waiting for. Chirp! At this moment, a loud phoenix cry suddenly came from a place where the raging flames were surging. Immediately after, a pitch-black demonic figure appeared, as if it had pierced through the ages. Like the curtain of the night, it burned with layers of purple-black death flames. The death flames were magical and surging. It directly engulfed the Fire Lion King's raging flames and instantly refined them into nothingness. Then, everyone was shocked to see a graceful and tall figure standing in front of Ling Xiao. Her hair fluttered in the wind, and her celestial appearance was peerless. Above her head, a black phoenix raised its head and let out a cry. Wisps of black flames flowed on its feathers, containing supreme demonic might. Chapter 865. If you want to kill my master, you'll have to step over my dead body first. The 9 underworlds stood in the void with a cold expression. The flames on his body condensed into wings, giving him the aura of an emperor. The 9 nether-downing phoenix was the true emperor race of the northern border. If the blue dragon emperor and the divine master had not joined hands, the current ruler of all demons might not be this sinister flood dragon. 9 Nether had never dared to reveal her true form, afraid that she would bring unnecessary trouble to Ling Xiao. But now, seeing that her master was in danger, she could not care less. The Downing Emperor. The Fire Lion King lowered his head and looked at the mysterious and elegant black phoenix. His fist-sized eyes suddenly flashed with shock. It was common knowledge that the Dark Phoenix clan had vanished without a trace 300 years ago. It was rumored that this race was favored by the Divine Master and had been brought to the upper world. But this rumor was flawless to ordinary demons. But to Demon King experts like the Fire Lion King, it was full of loopholes. In the history of the Xingzhou, countless people had ascended to the upper world, and all of them were outstanding talents. The 9 Nether-downing Phoenix had the bloodline of a true phoenix and was born with a deep understanding of the laws of fire. But there were strong and weak in this race, and ascending to the upper world would consume a lot of spirit and soul power. The Divine Master was not a demon, so why would he waste his energy to send an entire demon race to the upper world? Of course, in this world, the strong were respected. Since the Downing Phoenix race had disappeared, no demon would offend the Blue Dragon Emperor and the Divine Master for them. Therefore, in the past 300 years, no one dared to mention the Downing Phoenix race except for that stinky toad on Ghost Mountain. In fact, if that toad had not been born with good luck and was proficient in the arts of heaven and earth, it would have been killed by the Blue Dragon Emperor long ago. Both humans and demons believe that those who look for good luck were protected by the gods, and killing them was against the Tao. And this was the reason why the ghost toad was still alive. Of course, even if the Blue Dragon Emperor had not killed it, it would have been confined to Ghost Mountain for the past 300 years. Who would have thought? After 300 years, the Downing Phoenix race had reappeared in the northern border. You are the Flaming Lion King, the Violet Wing King, and the others exchanged glances. Their eyes flickered with doubt and surprise. If the Dark Phoenix clan had really died in the hands of the Divine Master, why would she recognize the saint of the sacred sect as her master? The heavens and the earth were silent. Even the Blue Dragon Emperor and Yuan Ju had a wisp of shock on their faces. Others were only guessing, but these two knew the truth. What exactly was going on? Acting all mysterious. Fire Lion King, what are you waiting for? In the void, Emperor-level White Elephant's eyes were ghastly as he roared in anger. All those years ago, if it wasn't for the annihilation of the Dark Phoenix clan, it wouldn't have been his turn to sit on the throne of the Northern Territory. No matter how this Dark Phoenix clansman managed to survive, he was still an enemy. Kill them and leave no future trouble. Kill. The Fire Lion King gritted his teeth. In the end, he didn't dare to disobey the White Elephant Demon Emperor's order. At the same time, the Purple Wing King, Stone Ape King, and the others' expressions turned serious. Demonic chi filled the air around them as they pounced towards 9 Nether. Today's situation was already irreconcilable. The demon race had rebelled. If they couldn't kill the saint and destroy the 9 Nether Mountain, it wouldn't be long before the saint sect's experts descended and slaughtered the demon race. Therefore, there was no way out for them. But just as 2 of the 4 demon kings pounced towards 9 Nether and 2 pounced towards Ling Xiao, a wisp of black fog suddenly floated over from the void. The ghostly fog spread silently. A gust of disgusting, sinister, and rotten air surged over. There seemed to be tens of thousands of ghosts floating within it. Mountains of corpses and seas of bones overlapped, covering the blue sky. All the Demon King's expressions turned serious. Even the Fire Lion King and the others stopped in their tracks. They stood in the void and looked towards the direction of the ghostly fog. Ling Xiao hugged Ziyan. His eyes were clear, but there was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. The Northern Territory's 3 thearchs and 9 kings controlled tens of thousands of miles of mountains and rivers. However, there is only one demon king who stood alone among tens of thousands of races and guarded a single mountain. This demon king's name was Ghost Toad. He was the archdemon beast. It was said that he was once the most loyal follower of Ming Foam Master. Now that 9 Nether had appeared, how could he not come? It's been 300 years. A low sigh suddenly came from the layers of fog. Then, all the demon kings were shocked to see a figure covered in a black robe, slowly walking over and standing in the fog. Although his aura was powerful and terrifying, it was also mixed with a trace of lethargy. "Ghost Toad, how dare you come out?" The Blue Dragon Emperor shouted coldly. She waved her hand and forced Xiong Huan to retreat. She stood in front of tens of thousands of demon kings. "Tell me, what exactly happened 300 years ago?" Ghost Toad ignored the Blue Dragon Emperor and walked over step by step. Boundless black mist gushed out from his body, shattering the void and intimidating everyone in the world. "Who are you?" 9 Nether frowned slightly and turned to look at Ling Xiao. She knew that Ling Xiao was the one who had imprisoned the saintess of the saint and replaced her. However, this was a serious matter, and she could not make a private decision. "I am Ming Foam Clan's guardian elder, Ghost Toad Wushou. Tell me, where did the Phoenix Master go?" Ghost Toad raised his head, revealing an ugly face full of tumors. "Wushou, so it's you." 9 Nether's brows relaxed as she nodded slightly. Seeing Ling Xiao's faint smile, she took a deep breath and said coldly, "Senior, my Dark Phoenix clan was harmed by the Azure Dragon Emperor and the Divine Master, and has been exterminated." "What?" Hearing that, countless demon race experts were shocked, but their eyes were filled with confusion. Since the Ming Feng clan was destroyed by the Divine Master, why would this Ming Feng recognize the saint as its master? "So, you were forced to do it?" Ghost Toad Wushou lowered his head and looked at Ling Xiao, his brown eyes flashing with a sinister, murderous intent. "The saint is different from the Divine Master. He is a righteous person." 9 Nether shook her head. "Senior Wushou, please help me kill the Blue Dragon and help me take revenge. As expected, this traitorous bastard." "Ha! Ha ha ha!" Ghost Toad lowered his head and let out a sinister laugh. Then he suddenly raised his head and looked into the distance. "Blue Dragon, you deserve to die." "Nonsense. Ghost Toad, I respect you as the demon race's prophet and have not attacked you for 300 years. You better see the situation clearly and not be fooled by others." The Blue Dragon Emperor snorted. Green scales covered her body, and a torrential dragon aura descended. Instantly, the hesitation on many demon race experts' faces disappeared. What happened 300 years ago was already a thing of the past. To them, it was not important at all. Now, even if Ghost Toad attacked, the demon race still had the absolute advantage. If any demon dared to show a trace of dissatisfaction or suspicion, they would probably become the chicken that the Blue Dragon Emperor wanted to kill. "Yuanju, do you still want to run away this time?" Ghost Toad Wushou sighed and looked at Yuanju with a lonely expression. However, Yuanju only hesitated for a moment before shaking her head. "I am the divine envoy of the Saint sect. I don't know much about the sect's matters. I'm just following orders." Hearing Yuanju's words, Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, but the corners of his mouth curved into a playful smile. Chapter 866. Yuanju, you are ruining the future of the entire demon clan. Ghost Toad Wushou gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with grief and anger. No matter why 9 Nether recognized the saint as her master, if Yuanju could not expose the Divine Master and the Blue Dragon Emperor's true colors, all the demon clan experts on 9 Nether Mountain would become pawns in the hands of the Blue Dragon Emperor. Even if they could kill the saint today, Yuanju and the other 9th grade Divine Emperor would most likely not die. By then, as long as the two returned to the saint, the Northern Territory would be destroyed. The current plan was to let all the experts of the 5 territories know that the Divine Master was cruel and the Blue Dragon was despicable and shameless. Only then would the Northern Territory Demon Clan have a chance to survive and reverse the fate of the world. Of course, even if the Northern Territory Demon Clan was wiped out, Ghost Toad would at most feel guilty. He understood Yuan Ju. As long as it was not a matter of life and death, she would not use her full strength. It would be difficult to kill the Blue Dragon Emperor with just the Saint's follower. Even if heaven and earth did not care, she would not let him down. They could lose the team battle, but today, the Blue Dragon must die. Yuan Ju snorted coldly, but did not say anything. She had shown up to fight because she was forced by the Divine Order. It was impossible for her to identify the Divine Master. Seeing this scene, the smile on Ling Zhao's face grew even wider. It was obvious that the second Divine Envoy was someone who cherished her life very much. There was no good or evil in her heart. The decision she made was just a matter of pros and cons. Of course, the immortal path was unpredictable and the heavenly Tao was heartless. Yuan Ju's actions were not wrong. In this world, there were people who believed in righteousness and benefits. However, regardless of whether it was righteousness or benefits, one must have the strength to get what one wanted. If the weak said that, they would be bragging. Boom! Just as everyone was in a stalemate, a green-scaled palm suddenly appeared in the void above. It tore the sky apart and covered an area of 100 miles. That palm was densely covered with layers of scales. It was overflowing with Taoist rhymes and overflowing with demonic power. There was a rumbling power of qi and blood that evolved into endless avatars. This palm was so sudden that even Xiong Huan and the others could not react in time. Shameless. Nine Nether's expression changed drastically as he looked up at the place where the green seal landed. It was where Ling Xiao was. Yuan Ju hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she did not dare to take the Azure Dragon Emperor's all-out attack head-on. Master! The expressions of Xiao Beifa, Xing Shun, and the others changed. Even though they had seen Ling Zhao's various techniques, they still didn't believe that this young man could escape from the suppression of a 9th-grade Divine Emperor. However, at this moment, there was not the slightest trace of panic on the faces of Xiao Wan, Hua Hua, and the others. Even the eyes of the youth under the green palm did not flicker with the slightest trace of seriousness. Instead, there was a trace of playfulness in them. Boom! The heavens collapsed, tens of thousands of cracks extending for 100 li, unrestrained and unrestrained. A terrifying might fell from the sky, causing Ling Zhao's black robe to flutter. His hair danced in the wind, but for some reason, it added a bit of unruliness to him. He raised his head to look at the sky. His eyes were clear, and there seemed to be endless divine light blooming in them. Within a radius of 100 kilometers, all soul sense was within his perception. However, in the end, Ling Xiao was still a little disappointed. At this moment, he did not detect a trace of abnormality. It seemed that his guess in the bottom of his heart was most likely wrong. Or perhaps, the expert who had casually killed the 8 great divine emperors of the Heaven's secret sect back then knew of Ziyan's existence? Since he was a villain, Ling Xiao suddenly had a bold guess. How could he not have a guardian behind him? Moreover, when his body had returned to the Ling people, the shock on Ling Tianlin's face had exceeded his imagination. From the beginning to the end, his old father had not given him any powerful life-saving trump cards. Even the moon of Xianyuan, who pampered his son madly, did not seem to be very worried about his safety outside. Was this reasonable? During the battle in the sea, Ling Zhao's layers of arrangements could be said to be meticulous. However, even he had not thought of Dugi Yunjin's true identity. This had nothing to do with his scheming at all. It was because he was not experienced enough. These old things who had lived for hundreds and thousands of years had terrifying trump cards in their hands. Even if Ling Xiao had lured the demons and Ziyin into the trap, and Sect Master Taixian was protecting him, once the 8 great divine emperors of the Heaven's secret sect appeared, the battle would have been extremely tragic. However, at the critical moment, the 8 divine emperors were mysteriously killed, causing Dugi Yunjin to be isolated and helpless and die at the hands of Ling Xiao. Of course, even if Ziyin, the great demon, and the others had died back then, Ling Xiao had arranged for his body to hide thousands of miles away in advance. He could hide in the realm at any time and leave the battle. However, in this way, his grand plan would have been delayed. Now, it seemed that the expert hiding in the dark had unknowingly given Ling Xiao a great opportunity. Who was this person? Ling Xiao had seen most of the experts of the Ling people. However, the more he learned, the more he felt that Ling Tianlin and the Moon of Xuanyuan's identities were not simple. Perhaps they had already arranged something behind his back to protect his life. Dao protectors fought to survive in the face of death. This person had never appeared because Ling Xiao had never truly faced death. However, although this guess was reasonable, Ling Xiao did not dare to take the slightest risk. After all, luck was something that belonged to the heavens, and he did not deserve it. Therefore, when he saw the Blue Dragon Emperor act rashly, Ling Xiao spread out his divine consciousness, wanting to find some clues. However, now it seemed that he had thought too simply. The unification of the Northern Territory was imperative. As long as Ziyin revealed her true body, both the Blue Dragon Emperor and Brother Blue Dragon would not be able to escape death today. Given Yuan Ju's personality, when the battle became clear, she would not hesitate to kill the demons. Then, it would be truly foolproof. However, the four territories were already under Ling Xiao's control. What he needed to do next was to head to the Central Territory and kill the Divine Master. This battle was the key to whether Ling Xiao could step out of this realm or not. After traveling 100 miles, the halfway point was 90. Ling Xiao would not allow any accidents to happen during this period. Therefore, today he had to find out whether there was a Dao protector standing behind him. In fact, Ling Xiao had thought of returning to the Ling people and asking his father the reason. However, based on Ling Xiao's understanding of his parents, they had never mentioned it, so they must have their own difficulties. The more he looked at the map of the Shenzhou continent, the more it seemed like a conspiracy, a test. Only by passing the test with his own strength would he be able to obtain some kind of recognition and learn more secrets of the world. In that case, Ling Xiao's eyes gradually turned cold. He already had an idea in his heart. Based on the current situation, the Blue Dragon Emperor was after the dragon bone in his body. On the other hand, the demons had the absolute upper hand. Only by making this ruler of the demons fall into despair would he go completely crazy. Ziyin, buzz! All of a sudden, lightning flashed in the air, forming a formation. A terrifying demon figure seemed to have pierced through the ages and appeared above Ling Xiao's head. It was the figure of a beautiful woman. Her long hair was like a waterfall, and her golden eyes were like the sea. She was a peerless beauty. Then, she stretched out a finger and gently pressed it against the azure dragon seal, descending from the sky. Chapter 867. Boom! Between heaven and earth, thunder marks rumbled and surged, turning into a surging sea. The ancient lightning formation that was originally standing tall in the sky suddenly started to spin. Lightning fell from the sky like the Milky Way and gathered on Ziyan's body. Then, divine lightning surged from her fingertip and rushed into the sky like a lightning dragon. In terms of bloodline, Ziyin was more than a level higher than the Blue Dragon Emperor. Now, all the monsters were in the lightning formation that she had personally set up. The lightning dragon's shadow broke through the sky and collided with the green seal with a force that could crush heaven and earth. Tens of thousands of rays of light suddenly lit up, illuminating the entire 9th underworld mountain in a silvery white color. The Blue Dragon Emperor's expression changed, and she took a few steps back in panic. The barren mountain below her was crushed, and the void cracked. Just one finger was enough to make the monster clan's ruler lose. The world was dead silent. Everyone looked at the beautiful figure in the sky, and there was nothing but shock in their eyes. Ziyin stood with her hands behind her back. She was magnificent, and her body was shining brightly. She seemed to be in harmony with heaven and earth. She just stood there, but she gave off a domineering aura that made people want to bow and kneel. Another ninth-grade divine emperor? At this moment, not to mention the experts from the demon clan, even Nine Nether, Yuan Ju, and the others had a look of fear on their faces. No one had expected that there would be a ninth-grade divine emperor behind the holy son of the sacred sect. She forced the Blue Dragon Emperor to retreat with one finger. This golden-robed woman's cultivation was probably above the Blue Dragon Emperor's. But when did the Shengzhou have so many ninth-grade divine emperors? Ninth-grade divine emperor. The Blue Dragon Emperor's eyes darkened. Her heart skipped a beat when she felt Ziyan's mighty dragon aura. She originally thought that this woman must be an expert from the Saint sect. But other than Yuan Ju, she had never heard of anyone from the Monster Clan. Where did this woman come from? Kill them all. Ling Xiao looked up at the Monster Kings and Monster Emperors in the sky and waved his hand. Hearing this, the experts' faces flashed with fighting spirit. Especially despicable Xiao. He stood proudly before everyone with a saber in his hand, and his eyes were filled with a wisp of arrogance and overbearingness. A group of ants dares to be presumptuous before my lord. Today I want to fight 1 against 6. Roar. Just as Xiao Pong's words left his mouth, 6 demonic tigers covered in black runes roared angrily as they stomped through the air. Monarch's aura gushed out from their bodies. They were actually 6 god emperors. Xiao Tao was stunned and instinctively retreated. However, he saw that both Xiong Huan and Zi Yin had already fallen into a chaotic battle, and no one was paying attention to him. In an instant, cold sweat appeared on Xiao Popper's face. He had indeed comprehended the law of time. However, apart from acting cool, he had not been cultivating seriously. As a result, his cultivation level had not increased much. He was only at the 3rd stage Divine Emperor realm. If he were to face a rank 4 or rank 5 powerhouse, he would be able to crush them with his talent. But 6 Emperor gods? There seemed to be 6 tiger demons? Oh no, is this the feeling of overdoing it? Or should I secretly call him daddy? It said that a vicious tiger doesn't recognize its own son. Brothers, you've misunderstood. What I mean is, I want to be the one who fights against 6. Boom! A terrifying heavenly might spread out, shattering the sky. 7-colored light bloomed for thousands of miles. Tribulation lightning fell from the sky as if it was going to destroy the world. Ziyin took a step forward and joined forces with Xiong Huan to trap the Blue Dragon Emperor in the void. In the end, today's chaos in the Northern Territory was all because of this old dragon. As long as he died, this group of demonic beast experts would be like fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered by their master. The rift within 10,000 li was completely shattered. It was like ice crystals erupting with terrifying power. The Blue Dragon Emperor's face was gloomy. Countless Dao runes tumbled around her. As she breathed in and out, she vaguely transformed into an illusory image of a green dragon. However, given the Blue Dragon Emperor's strength, she could barely fight Xiong Huan or Zi Yin alone. However, facing 2 9th-stage god emperors at the same time, she did not have the slightest ability to fight back. Moreover, Zi Yin had directly used the Lightning Dragon's sacred might and used the power of the array to suppress the Blue Dragon Emperor. Xiong Huan punched out, completely shattering the void. Endless demonic light soared into the sky and pierced through the sky. It was as if countless demonic shadows had appeared, and thousands of demons roared together. It was frightening. Countless demonic beast experts were pale as they looked up at the 3 figures in the sky. Their eyes were already filled with fear. Today, the various tribes of the Northern Territory had come aggressively, but they did not expect to be forced into such a state by a human youth. Once the Blue Dragon Emperor was defeated or died, who in the Northern Territory would be able to fight against these 2 9th-stage god emperors? Although the ants were united, the elephant didn't know that the number of ants that died was in the millions. Yuan Ju stood in the sky with a shocked expression. She was the Saint Sect's 2nd divine envoy. Although she was restricted by the current divine master, she could not interfere in the sect's affairs. However, when did the Saint sect have two more ninth-stage god emperors? Moreover, it seemed like these two ninth-stage god emperors only listened to the Saint. Inexplicably, a chill rose in Yuan Ju's heart. Her fear of the Saint sect had undoubtedly increased. White Elephant Emperor, let me send you on your way. Finally, Yuan Ju stepped forward and waved her hand. It seemed like an ordinary palm, but it stirred up the wind and clouds. In an instant, the blue sky fell and the sun and moon lost their light. A golden figure descended from the sky and pounced on the White Elephant Emperor. Now, it seemed that the outcome was set. The Northern Territory Demon Clan would be destroyed today. Therefore, she had no more hesitation. You're courting death. The Blue Dragon Emperor shouted and revealed her true form. Her 1,000-foot demonic body covered the sky and the sun. Clouds rose and lingered around her four claws. Furthermore, at this moment, the Blue Dragon Emperor's dragon body had begun to emit a dragon's might. Her long beard snaked, and her horns pierced the sky. However, under Xiong Huan's fist, the scales on her body had already shattered. Blood splattered everywhere, and she looked inexplicably bleak. Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back and looked up at the chaotic battle in the sky. At this moment, the demonic beast no longer had the indomitable aura from before. Defeat was already an irresistible trend. However, just as Ling Xiao was muttering to himself, ripples suddenly appeared in the sky above his head. Then, a golden figure suddenly flashed over. A pair of long wings spanned 100 miles and stirred up 1,000 feet of fishy wind. In a flash, it appeared in front of Ling Xiao. Holy son of the sacred sect, you killed my son. Today, I will make you pay with your blood. It was the leader of the 10 great demon kings, the Golden Condor King. The Golden Condor race was originally a race that rode the wind and looked down on the demonic beasts with lightning speed. At this moment, the Golden Condor King was an 8th-rank great emperor, not to mention Xiong Huan and the others. Even Ling Xiao's face flashed with surprise and panic. However, under this surprise, there was a faint smile at the corner of the youth's mouth. The reason he had sent Zi Yin out was to expose an opening for the demonic beasts, an opportunity for them to rest assured and launch a sneak attack. This way, Ling Xiao could truly probe the background of the expert hiding behind the scenes. Everything was under his control. Everyone was a chess piece. Chapter 868. Master. In the sky, Zi Yin and the others' expressions changed drastically. Divine light flickered around them as they rushed toward Ling Xiao. However, the Blue Dragon Emperor's eyes flashed with excitement. Layers of Tao patterns flowed on the green scales. They shone brightly and blocked Zi Yin and Xiao Xian's path. With the Golden Condor King's speed, Zi Yin and Xiao Xian would not be able to stop him even if they attacked. As long as Ling Xiao died, the demons could retreat first and plan something else. With the dragon bone in hand, the Blue Dragon Emperor would have enough confidence to enter the exalted realm and become the ruler of the world. At that time, even a divine master would not be able to stop her, let alone 2 9th-grade divine emperors. It was not that he had not considered killing Long Xian and snatching the dragon bone. However, the true dragon's Saint Aura suppressed the flood dragon bloodline too much. Moreover, Long Xian's talent was unprecedented. Even the Blue Dragon Emperor was wary of her. He just did not expect that the demon race's divine ancestor would die so easily at the hands of the saint. Buzz. Above Ling Xiao's head, boundless golden light shone down. One could vaguely see a demonic shadow breaking through the air. The moment the demonic claw reached out, it locked down the space, and all sorts of Tao laws were formed. Even if Ling Xiao was on full alert, he would not be able to resist the full-strength attack of a peak 8th-grade divine emperor. Moreover, the Golden Condor King's sudden sneak attack did not give Ling Xiao any time to react. However, the more it was like this, the more realistic this chess game was. A smart hunter would always appear as the prey. In fact, in order to make the scene realistic, Ling Xiao did not tell Ziyin and the others beforehand. Therefore, the nervousness and shock on their faces were also real. Only Xiao Ping revealed despair in his eyes. He was forced to flee in all directions by the group of demon tigers, and when he saw Ling Xiao being killed, he actually felt sorrow from the bottom of his heart. Master is going to die. What will happen to me, a soul slave? Shameless. Ling Xiao frowned. Spiritual light bloomed around him. Several Tao laws appeared and turned into thousands of divine images. Waves of fire surged as divine trees pierced through the heavens. Boundless lightning intent surged as the ear-piercing keening of swords rang out. Ling Xiao raised the devil blade of samsara high up in the air as he slashed downwards. Woo-woo. Endless demonic chants reverberated throughout the world, shaking the universe. A demonic shadow broke through the void and materialized from a blade. It then stepped toward the golden condor demon shadow. Tens of thousands of demonic runes evolved layer by layer, and monstrous divine power gathered on the saber. Ling Xiao's face was solemn, and for the first time, a hint of panic appeared in his eyes. However, he was secretly looking forward to it. Boom! The saber light swept through the air, cutting the entire world apart. The golden condor king's eyes flickered with fear in the face of this terrifying slash. This saber strike was enough to threaten his life. However, in Ling Xiao's haste, his saber intent was clearly a little superficial. Today, the northern border was already a dead end. Only by killing this saint of the sacred sect would the demon race have a chance of survival. With that thought, the golden condor king's eyes suddenly glowed with golden light, which instantly covered his body. In an instant, his aura rose again, faintly approaching the ninth stage. Chirp! A cry resounded through the sky. From afar, the golden condor king was like a dazzling sun, carrying with it the power to destroy the heavens as he fell from the sky. Boom, boom. The void within 10,000 miles was distorted and shattered, and Ling Xiao's saber intent finally disappeared in the endless golden light. At the same time, a thick smell of blood drifted out, and before the curtain of blood could fall, it was illuminated into nothingness by the golden sun. The golden condor king's figure finally descended from the sky, completely enveloping Ling Xiao's figure. His speed was extremely fast. Even though Ziyin and Xiong Huan joined forces to force the Blue Dragon Emperor back, they were still a little too slow. They could only watch as the black figure was swallowed up by the golden sun. Master! Sorrowful cries came from the peak of the 9th underworld mountain. The demon race took this opportunity to counterattack with all their might, instantly reversing the situation. However, just as the golden sun gradually dissipated, the entire 9th underworld mountain inexplicably fell into a dead silence. Everyone looked at the tall figure standing on the peak of the mountain, whose demonic aura had completely dissipated. Other than fear, there was also a strong sense of absurdity in their eyes. At that moment, a black blade pierced through the golden condor king's back, and his vitality was rapidly draining away at a speed visible to the naked eye. How could this be? The Blue Dragon Emperor and the others stood in the air, looking at the scene in front of them in a daze. How could a young man from the human clan kill an 8th-grade divine emperor? How dare you injure my master? You deserve to die. Suddenly, a cold and sinister voice came from the void. The space behind the golden condor king rippled slightly, and a ghostly hand reached out from the void, tightly grasping the golden condor king's neck. It was a pitch-black and withered hand. It was strangely slender, and it seemed to be covered with demonic runes, which were terrifying to look at. It was this person who had held the golden condor king in place at the crucial moment, allowing Ling Xiao to pierce through the latter's heart. But how could this be? Even a 9th-grade divine emperor would not be able to capture an 8th-grade great demon with one hand so easily. But now, the golden condor king, the leader of the 10 great demon kings of the northern region, was like an ordinary wild bird, restrained by the black-robed figure with one hand. This scene was really strange and shocking. Even Ling Zhao's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. This aura, Xiong Huan and Liang Yi stood in the void, looking at each other from afar. Their eyes suddenly trembled. Buzz! In a short moment, the Golden Condor King's body quickly withered, and his bloodline and divine soul were completely devoured by the reincarnation demonic blade. Even the terrifying power in his monster core was turned into nourishment for Ling Xiao. As his figure disappeared, Ling Zhao's lips suddenly curled into a faint smile. A guardian could break through Dao intent in the face of death. But with Ling Zhao's temperament, how could he so easily put himself to death? An eighth-grade divine emperor was indeed difficult for him to fight. Moreover, the Golden Condor King had launched a sudden sneak attack and used all his strength. But Ling Xiao had a death substitute puppet that the system had rewarded him. So even if the black-robed figure did not appear, he would not be in any danger. Seeing the smile at the corner of Ling Zhao's mouth, a hint of surprise suddenly flashed across the cold and resolute face under the black robe. Uncle Ghost, long time no see. Ling Xiao withdrew the demonic blade and stood on the spot, the confusion in his heart disappearing. Ghost Shadow was the most mysterious expert among the Ling people. Even the entire Ling people did not know about his origin. The more mysterious something was, the greater its origin. Ling Xiao had long suspected it, but he did not expect Ghost Shadow to be so well hidden. An eighth-grade divine emperor could be easily killed. Could it be that he was also from the upper realm? Moreover, what surprised Ling Xiao the most was that Ghost Shadow did not address him as young master, but as Lord. Greetings, Lord. Guiying shook his head slightly. However, a rare smile appeared on his face that was as calm as an ancient well. At this moment, he had already guessed that everything that happened today was under Ling Zhao's control. Even the Golden Condor King's sneak attack was within Ling Zhao's expectations. He deliberately allowed Ziyin, Xiong Huan, and the others to attack, but in reality, he exposed an opening and lured the demon race's divine emperor to attack. With such a temperament, everyone's efforts were not in vain. Chapter 869. Let's talk about it later. Kill them all. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at the Blue Dragon Emperor. His eyes were extremely clear. No matter what Gui Ying's identity was, since he was a Dao protector, he would definitely not have any disloyalty towards Ling Xiao. Moreover, Ling Xiao had already guessed that Gui Ying was his master. However, Ling Xiao had seen Gui Ying's means. His guardian's cultivation was probably higher than Xiong Huan and Ziyan's. The fewer people who knew about such a trump card, the more important it would be at a critical moment. Today, the 9 Underworld Mountain would definitely be filled with blood and corpses. Yes, Gui Ying bowed and turned to look at the sky. He stared indifferently at the Blue Dragon Emperor. As long as he killed this demon emperor today, the situation in the northern border would completely fall into Ling Zhao's control. He would destroy the sacred sect with the power of the four borders. Even he was terrified of his master's temperament and strategy. He was cautious and thorough, pulling out the divine master's wings step by step. He used all living beings as chess pieces to control the power of the world. If his master had such a temperament back then, how could he have ended up like a stranger? He was the overlord of the world, advancing courageously without any distractions and making no mistakes. However, in this world, immortals and gods were all greedy. How could it be easy to truly unify the 9 heavens? If he did not have a strategy and thousands of schemes, wouldn't it be another cycle of the past? Therefore, the billions of living beings in the Shengzhou were just a trial from the beginning to the end. Even if billions of living beings were slaughtered, the heavens no longer existed, and the great Tao was obliterated. As long as his master could comprehend something, it would be a worthy death. The great Tao was just an impermanent, sacrificing billions of living beings to destroy the immortal Tao in his hands. Demons were the heavens. All demons, listen to my order. Blast open this array with all your might. Looking at Gui Ying's cold and empty eyes, the Blue Dragon Emperor only felt a chill rise from the bottom of her heart. The greed in her heart dissipated, leaving only endless regret. He should have guessed that the saint must have had something to rely on since he dared to stir up this chaos. Originally, the Blue Dragon Emperor thought that this reliance was at most a ninth-grade divine emperor in Yuanzhou, so the Shengzhou could run rampant. However, it was only now that he realized he was wrong. 4 great rank, 9 sovereigns. Even the fluctuations on this mysterious powerhouse were no different from the pressure that the Divine Lord had given him back then. If he didn't leave now, he might really lose his life here today. Hearing the Blue Dragon Emperor's words, the Yao Kings no longer dared to hesitate. Although the Golden Condor King was not as strong as the White Elephant Emperor, they were on par. In terms of speed, the Golden Eagle was even faster. Even so, he was unable to resist and died at the hands of the black-robed figure. Most likely, this person's strength had already broken through the shackles and was above that of a god emperor. Boom, boom. Above the horizon, flowing light overflowed in all directions. Endless divine power descended and pressed towards the ancient lightning array. Ziyan's expression trembled, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. However, even with that being the case, although there were cracks on the ancient formation, it did not completely collapse. Gui Ying let out a cold snort and took a step forward. A torrential heavens might swept out from his body. With every step he took, countless cracks appeared in the sky. It was as if an ancient demonic figure was stepping on the world and destroying the universe. Then, Gui Ying pressed out a hand seal. His palms seemed to contain the universe, and was like a primordial black hole that swallowed everything. At first, his figure was at the peak of the mountain, but in an instant he was already in front of the Blue Dragon Emperor. No! The Blue Dragon Emperor panicked. She transformed into her true form and stretched out for thousands of miles. Countless Tao patterns bloomed on her green scales. They were like the scales of a true dragon and looked indestructible. Ha ha ha! I never thought that after parting in the primordial era, I would be so fortunate to reunite with the Ghost General and fight side by side. Xiong Huan stood at the peak of the sky and laughed loudly. He also took a step forward and threw a punch. It shattered everything in its path and landed on the Blue Dragon Emperor's head. Seeing this, the Blue Dragon Emperor screamed in despair. Her blood surged into the sky and turned into a bloody mist that spread for thousands of miles. At the crucial moment, the Northern Territory Yao Emperor actually shattered his own Yao core and turned his blood energy into heaven's might to fight against 2 great rank, 9 divine emperors. You don't know what's good for you. Ziyan snorted coldly. As her jade-like hands moved, the lightning formation in the sky suddenly rippled. 2 lightning chains fell from the sky like heavenly pillars. They were like 2 lightning dragons that pierced through the sky and bound the Blue Dragon Emperor on the spot. At the same time, Gui Ying and Xiong Huan's attacks finally landed. One palm imprinted on the top of her head and the other on her back. Poochie! In an instant, blood spurted from the Blue Dragon Emperor's mouth, and the dragon scales on her body shattered. The aura that had just risen was instantly annihilated. Blood rained down from the sky, filling the air with the thick stench of blood. Plop! The 1,000-foot-long demon body fell from the sky and smashed the ancient mountain and forest into pieces. Ling Xiao walked over slowly and stood in front of the Blue Dragon Emperor with his hands behind his back. He had a gentle smile on his face. Blue Dragon Emperor, I'm here to send you on your last journey. As he finished speaking, the demonic blade in his hand slashed down. He did not give the Blue Dragon Emperor a chance to open her mouth and stab deeply between her brows. Boom! Endless demonic will spread out and shrouded the Blue Dragon Emperor's demon body. In a short moment, this northern frontier demonic emperor was reduced to nothing. Not even his soul was left behind. Boundless celestial light danced around Ling Zhao's body. Above his head, thunderclouds gathered and covered the sky. Spare me, Saint! Spare me! Spare me! No! In an instant, heaven and earth were mourning and all the demons were crying. Whether it was demonic thearchs or demon kings, They all knelt on the ground in fear. Ling Xiao took a deep breath and suppressed the lightning will around him. His gaze swept across the demons, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Immortal emperors, submit to 9 underworlds and be slaves for life. Kill the rest. 9 underworlds, come here. Master. 9 underworlds figure descended from the sky. At this moment, her body was also covered in wounds. However, she did not hide the excitement on her face. Boom! Soul light flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes and formed an imprint in 9 underworlds' soul sea. This imprint was not to control 9 underworlds, but to let her control all the demons before her. Master, 9 underworlds' body trembled as she looked at Ling Xiao in confusion. The northern border originally belonged to the Ming Feng clan. Now, you're the most suitable person to control the life and death of all the demons. Ling Xiao smiled gently and looked deeply at Yuan Zhu and Ghost Toad. What do you two think? We obey the saint's decree. Ghost Toad nodded and smiled. Without hesitation, it opened its soul sea and let 9 underworlds plant the imprint. Ming Feng's reappearance and reunification of the demon race had always been his obsession. Although 9 underworlds would definitely face many difficulties in the future, he had waited for this day for too long. However, Yuan Zhu frowned and seemed to be hesitating. However, when he saw Gue Ying, Xiong Huan, and Ziyan's figures, he could only sigh softly and say with a lonely smile, "My life was originally saved by Emperor Ming. Everything in this world is empty. As expected, karma is not empty. Forget it." Yuan Zhu turned to look at Ling Xiao. Her eyes were filled with vicissitudes, and there was no other thought in her heart. A young man used only a few days to conquer all the demons in the northern border. Of course, it was because he controlled countless experts. However, if he did not have heaven-defying schemes and shocking methods, how could he make the 3 God Emperors submit? And this was the real reason why Yuan Zhu was willing to be his servant. The Shengzhou was about to change. The God Master had set up a restriction in their divine souls. However, she was willing to form the imprint. Although it was still impossible to search her memories, it could easily decide her life and death. As long as Yuan Zhu did not leave the northern border, she would be the support of 9 underworlds. From today onwards, there would only be one God Emperor in the northern border, named Emperor 9 Underworlds. Chapter 870. No. Saint, please spare me. No, don't. I'm very strong. I can kill enemies above my level. Don't kill me. Screams could be heard all over 9 Underworld Mountain. Countless demon race experts were killed by the Blood Guards. With Xiong Huan and Ziyan's deterrence, these divine kings and divine marquises did not dare to act rashly. With the lightning array's cover, the stench did not spread to the northern border. Even if there were a few demon race experts hiding in the void, they were killed by Gue Ying. Gue Ying, come with me. Ling Xiao waved his hand and put Gue Ying into his realm, leaving Xiong Huan and Ziyan to deal with the aftermath of the mountain. Looking at the youth who had disappeared, 9 Underworld bowed deeply and did not get up for a long time. She had an ulterior motive for following Ling Xiao back then. But even in her dreams, she had never imagined that the northern border would return to her Dark Phoenix clan in just 3 years. At this moment, 9 Underworld's eyes were filled with tears. Her gratitude for Ling Xiao had gradually surpassed the hatred in her heart. Originally, she had only been living in this world for the sake of avenging the Dark Phoenix clan. But now, she was only worried that Ling Xiao would be in too much danger against the Divine Master. After all, the Blue Dragon Emperor, Yuan Zhu, and the others were only at the 9th stage. Even that mysterious black-clothed expert might not have truly stepped out of the shackles of heaven and earth. But the Divine Master was a true, venerable expert who had fused with the bloodline talent of the All-Spirits. Ling Xiao's talent was strong, and his temperament was also terrifying. With the power he controlled now, he was almost invincible in the Shengzhou, except for the Divine Master. Sometimes, no matter how many ants there were, they could swallow an elephant, but they could not kill a god. In the realm Heavenly Hall, Ling Xiao stood with his hands behind his back, looking into the distance. The situation in the northern border had been settled, and the remaining 3 borders were all under his control. But even so, Ling Xiao still did not feel that he could truly contend against the Divine Master. The shackles of heaven and earth could not be broken. Originally, he had wondered how the Divine Master had taken the final step, demonic bone, but now it seemed that his guess was wrong. The only thing that could truly break the shackles of this world was the dragon's soul suppressed in the central Shengzhou. In other words, even if the Divine Master had not completely fused with the soul, he had probably obtained great benefits from it. Behind him, Gue Ying bowed slightly, his eyes calm. Although he was forced to reveal himself today and exposed his whereabouts, he wasn't angry at all. Instead, he felt gratified. In the end, even with his temperament, he could not escape Ling Xiao's scheme. The Shengzhou continent, or rather, the 9 heavens and 10 worlds, could also be visited by his master. How should I address you? Ling Xiao suddenly turned around and looked at the ghost shadow behind him. Although he had always felt that Uncle Ghost was very strong, he did not expect him to be this strong. His methods and cultivation were definitely above that of Lord Taixian. Especially at this time, the space fluctuation around Gue Ying was several times more terrifying than by Jishi's. It was obvious that his protector was proficient in spatial techniques. Although he did not have any luck, his methods were quite strange. Otherwise, with the level of Ling Xiao's soul, how could he not have noticed his existence? However, what made Ling Xiao a little confused was that when he was Ling people, he did not see the power of Tao on Gue Ying's body. What was going on? Sky Demon Palace. Gue Ying, one of the 9 generals, greets my master. Gue Ying bowed and did not get up for a long time, but Ling Xiao did not look surprised at all. So, the one who killed the 8 god emperors in the sea was you? You knew my identity all this time? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. There were many guesses in his mind. That's right. Not only the 8 god emperors of the Tianji sect, but also the spies of the saint in the 4 borders were all killed by me. Even when Yi Qingchan reincarnated in the upper realm, it was also Lord Ling who ordered us to hide her whereabouts. Not only me, but all of this was planned by that lord from the upper realm. His purpose was to return my master. I see. Ling Xiao nodded silently. The saint had spies all over the 4 borders. With Dugi Yunjin's means, if not for Ling Tianlin's arrangements, he might have noticed Yi Qingchan long ago. After all, her appearance and name were the same as in her previous life. It was just that Ling Xiao did not know Yi Qingchan's origin back then, so he had no way to guard against her. It seemed that the reason why his journey was so smooth was all thanks to Ling Tianlin's secret support. As for the moon of Xianyuan, his mother had never cared about worldly affairs. Her temperament had always been like this. However, who was the lord that Gue Ying mentioned? Lord, are you also a member of the Sky Demon Palace? My master. My appearance at this time was already unexpected. There are some things that I'm not clear about. You should return to the Ling people and ask Lord Ling personally. Gue Ying sighed slightly and suddenly knelt on the ground. It was not my intention to hide it from my master, but your return this time is of great importance. It was an opportunity that the lords found after tens of thousands of years of planning. When my master steps out of this world and returns to the long river of time, my lord will personally inform you. At that time, my life will be in your hands. So you're saying that the Shengzhou continent was also carefully selected? Ling Xiao nodded gently. He had already guessed that his appearance was not by chance, but deliberately arranged by someone. However, Ling Xiao did not know why it was the Ling people and why it was in the Shengzhou land. But it was most likely related to the dragon's soul and the remains of the sky demon. Yes, my master, this world existed at the beginning of the primordial age and gave birth to an innate divine spirit called the Great Void Universe Dragon. This dragon's talent lies in the Tao of time and eternity. When my master died, his bones and spiritual treasures were sealed in this world. Originally, The immortals wanted to use this dragon's aura to strengthen the blood and bones and suppress the demon will. Unexpectedly, the Sky Demon Palace's great plan succeeded. Guiying stood up and looked at Ling Xiao with an extremely respectful expression. However, this is a place guarded by the immortals. If the experts of the Sky Demon Palace descend without restraint, it will definitely cause chaos. So we can only plan slowly, I see. Ling Xiao sighed softly. From the beginning, he had felt that the time order in the Shangzhou was rather strange. Whether it was the unforgiven demonic armor or the ancient reincarnation blade, they both emitted a vast and desolate aura. However, the history of the Shangzhou was only 1,000 years, which was obviously inconsistent. Now, with Guiying's explanation, he understood the reason. The immortals used this to suppress the Sky Demon, while the Ling people's scheme was the Dragon Soul. How does your combat strength compare to a Divine Master's? Also, why didn't I sense the aura of the laws on your body when I saw you before? Demonic runes seemed to appear in Ling Xiao's eyes. Even if Guiying's appearance was unexpected, his combat strength was far superior to Xiong Huan and the others. This was a living demon general. Even if he was bound by heaven and earth, and his cultivation level had fallen, his combat strength was still incomparable to that of an ordinary 9th-grade divine emperor. With his help, the sacred sect could be destroyed. Master, the one who usually appears in the Ling people, is just a shadow of mine. This world is suppressed by the dragon soul of the great void universe dragon, so there is absolutely no one in this world who can step into the venerable realm. My combat strength is at most a little stronger than a 9th-grade divine emperor, but there is absolutely no chance of me winning against a venerable. Guiying sighed. The great void universe dragon was originally a manifestation of this world's will. Even if it was slaughtered, it still suppressed the Shangzhou's heavenly Tao. The reason why the divine masters of the Foliaceae were not bound was most likely because they were of the same origin as the universe dragon. Even so, the spiritual aura of this world was thin and could not be compared to 1,000 years ago. The venerable realm was probably the upper limit. Is that so? In that case, I still have to merge with the Dragon Soul. Ling Xiao nodded, hundreds of thoughts spinning in his mind. Now that the 4 territories were in his hands, it should not be too much of a problem to use the power of the 4 territories to trap the Divine Masters. And as long as there was enough time for Shi'er to merge with the Dragon Soul, he could hide in the domain and cultivate in peace. At that time, it would only be a matter of time before he killed the Divine Masters and ascended to the upper world. But according to Ziyin, Yi Qingchan had already been seriously injured when she returned to the sacred sect. That was why Zhou Yandao had found the opportunity to kill her in one fell swoop. Then, who was the one who injured Yi Qingchan? Understand. Hide in the dark for the time being, and don't expose yourself. In the end, Ling Xiao did not say much and walked toward a certain place in the domain. The master that Guiying mentioned should be an expert in the Sky Demon Palace. The Shangzhou region was perhaps a training ground for him to temper his will and heart. Or rather, it was an opportunity for the Sky Demon to be reborn. After all, no one would have thought that the place that the immortals used to suppress the demon bone would be the place where the Sky Demon was reborn. Or rather, time was sealed. No matter how many unforeseen events happened in this world, there was no opportunity for him to grow. But this dragon soul was left behind by an innate sacred spirit. It could suppress the demon will and seal time, so one could only imagine its power. If he could merge with it, it would be a great fortune. It might even be able to conceal the sky demons while on Ling Xiao. The Shangzhou was barren, and the strongest experts were only at the venerable realm. But the Azure world might have true almighty experts. With their experience, they might be able to see through Ling Xiao's true identity. And the dragon soul might be the key to hiding the sky demon's body. Guiying's appearance today was truly unexpected. But even if Ling Xiao did not know the origin of the dragon soul, he had to find a way to merge with it if he wanted to kill the divine masters and step out of this world. So, the final destination of all these paths was the dragon soul. Interesting, as expected of someone from tens of thousands of years ago. Such a scheme is really terrifying. It seemed that once she emerged with the true dragon bone, Ling Xiao would have to leave for the central region. But before that, he had to make a trip to the Green Mountains to meet the first princess and ask her about the past 300 years. Chapter 871. Clang, clang, clang. In the Azure world, the sound of a bell suddenly spread through billions of star regions. Countless ancient and powerful auras walked out of the ancestral land and looked up at the distant sky. There was a pillar that supported the sky. It was where the Realm Lord Palace was located. The sound of the bell came from the palace's divine treasure, the immortal demon ancient bell. It was rumored that this bell was an item of the immortal race. It suppressed thousands of regions and had unparalleled power. At the same time, it had a great magical use, which was to survey the fate of the heavens and foretell good and bad luck. Furthermore, there was an ancient saying in the Azure world. If the bell rang 9 times, it would mean the birth of the sky demon, and it would be beyond redemption. For tens of thousands of years, the immortal demon ancient bell had never made a sound. Even on the day the Realm Lord went missing, there was no sign at all. Unexpectedly, it suddenly gave a warning today. The immortal demon ancient bell? It shouldn't be. Azure World, deity battlefield. Several old figures stood in front of a majestic ancient palace with their hands behind their backs. Their faces were covered by immortal clouds, and their bodies were full of Taoist rhymes. However, there was a trace of surprise in their eyes. Did Tianlin send any news? Ninth ancestor, no. 3 rings. Could it be related to the Realm Lord's disappearance? Or could it be that an expert of the Sky Demon Palace has awakened? Clang, clang, clang. However, just as the few of them were pondering to themselves, 5 more bell tolls rang out from the sky. Everyone looked at each other. However, the old man in the lead suddenly sneered. No matter who it is, it's an opportunity for the Sky Demon Palace. Pass down my order. Send the experts of the clan to secretly sneak into thousands of regions and slaughter all living beings. Third ancestor, you mean the Lord did not go to the upper world. Now that a demon has appeared in the Azure world, we will create a sky demon. Wonderful. This way, even if the Lord steps into the Azure world, he can get rid of all suspicion and hide behind the scenes. Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed. It was as if slaughtering all living beings in thousands of regions was nothing to them, burying millions of living beings just to hide the identity of one person. It had to be said that these sage-like old men in front of him were ruthless. For a time, the Azure Sky world was completely shaken. Countless powerful and ancient auras were awakened from their slumber. Various monstrous geniuses walked out of their sects and embarked on their journey. It was all for training. The 8 bell tolls stopped abruptly. Although it didn't match the rumors, the news of the Sky Demon's birth had already spread. Chaos had arrived, and the path to immortality was full of ups and downs. The true mandate of heaven should be born in the face of tribulation. Calculating the time, it had been tens of thousands of years since anyone had ascended to immortality in the Azure firmament. But now, the calamity had descended. Killing the Sky Demon was perhaps an opportunity to become an immortal. At this moment, Gu Chaoxiai stood in the divine hall of the immortal Phoenix ancient dynasty with a pale face. Her beautiful eyes were filled with fear. How is that possible? How could it be the Sky Demon bloodline? Just now, she tried to use the Chaos Great Tao to check the bloodline in her stomach, but she didn't expect that it would cause the immortal devil bell to ring. At first, Gu Chaoxiai thought that it was an accident, but when she checked a second time, the bell rang again. It turned out that she was pregnant with a demonic seed. For a moment, Gu Chaoxiai was confused. She always had 2 obsessions about Ling Xiao. One was to cut off their relationship and achieve her own great Tao. The other was that she missed him so much that it hurt her bones and heart. It wasn't that Gu Chaoxiai didn't want to abort the fetus in her stomach and draw a clear line between her and Ling Xiao. But every time she had this thought, she would feel uneasy and her Tao heart would tremble. She was afraid that if she did that, she would be doomed eternally. Although Gu Chao Si had long sensed the demonic intent on Ling Xiao, but she didn't expect it to be the sky demons. The immortal devil Ancient Bell was the sacred treasure of the immortal race. Although the Realm Master was missing, there were still many powerful cultivators in the Realm Master's palace. Even if Ling Xiao went to the upper world, it would be difficult for him to escape death. Gu Chao Si was conflicted about whether he would die or not, but she was also looking forward to it. But her child was innocent. A wisp of determination suddenly flickered in Gu Chaozi's eyes when he thought up to this point. His Tao intent rose and fell, causing immortal radiance to bloom in the hall and a myriad of phenomena to appear. A new sun appeared in the sky. Mountains stood tall, rivers and seas flowed in reverse, and all living things woke up. Vaguely, a grand and heavy aura gushed out and enveloped the world. The Chaos Great Tao was the most mystical Great Tao among the 3,000 Great Taos. It was said that when this Tao was cultivated to the peak, one's body could transform into the universe and form a universe. At that moment, with the surging power of the Tao, the entire Golden Palace seemed to have turned into a world that was nurturing an extremely terrifying world power. Time passed slowly, and the various phenomena receded like the tide. In the end, they formed a seal that floated above Gu Chao Si's head. Right now, her face was strangely pale. However, her eyes were strangely clear. In the next moment, she waved her hand gently. The golden seal formed by the Chaos Great Tao suddenly pressed down and enveloped her body. Then, it turned into layers of golden light and poured into her body. Pucci, Gu Chao Si's footsteps shook and her breathing weakened. However, the corner of her lips curled up. She raised her head and looked at the sky outside the palace. There was a complicated look in her eyes. Once she reveals Ling Xiao's identity to the public, this young man will become the enemy of the entire world. But at the same time, her child will be born sooner or later. The immortal phoenix, ancient dynasty alone cannot protect him. Plus, she has lost the trust of the dynasty and has become a tool for marriage. If the ancestors of her clan find out that she has sealed the Chaos Great Tao, she will no longer have any value. She hoped for his arrival, but she also hoped for his death. How contradictory! She didn't think that her clone would become a trial that Gu Chao Si couldn't overcome. Was this fate? At the same time, in the ancestral land of the Foliaceae, a beautiful figure in a white robe slowly walked over. Her feet were bare. Every step she took, a golden lotus bloomed. Her face was extremely calm, like an ancient well without any ripples. She had the appearance of a young girl, but the temperament she exuded was like that of a 1,000-year-old monk. She had seen through the mortal world and was not attached to the mortal world. She was cold and aloof. In between her brows, a red lotus was shining brightly. Although it was a symbol of Buddhism, it was strangely demonic. Yaoguang. Although this was the border of the Foliaceae, there were still countless powerhouses guarding this place. The reason was that there was an ancient array here that was connected to the Shengzhou. It was the only way for the beings of the Shengzhou to enter the upper realm. Amitabha, monk by Kuei, clasped her hands together. A string of golden Buddhist prayer beads was hanging from her white wrist. They shone with Buddhist light. Why has the Arhut come to the Foliaceae? This is the forbidden land of the Foliaceae. Please state your purpose. The people of the Foliaceae looked at each other with a trace of surprise in their eyes. It was said that the Arhut cultivated the supreme scripture of Buddhism, the scripture of 3 lives. This scripture cultivated the heart and did not provoke karma. Why did the Arhut come out of the sacred land and enter the mortal world today? Xiunshin. Yaoguang softly chanted the name of Buddha. He raised his eyes and looked at the light pillar of the array in the distance. Then he sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. With her Buddha nature, the world was vast and there were all kinds of karma. She could cultivate anywhere. However, she had a feeling that he would come. Xiunshin. The people of the Foliaceae were surprised. However, Everyone in the Azure continent knew of Yao Wang's name. The Brahma sacred land had always been revered by the world. Therefore, no one dared to be disrespectful. Quickly report to the ancestor. In the end, everyone pondered for a moment and sent someone to the temple of the Foliaceae. Chapter 872. The 8 chimes completely broke the peace of the Azure Sky world. Originally, the disappearance of the Realm Lord had already caused many ancient clans to become restless. And now, the chimes of the immortal devil Ancient Bell were taken as a warning of the impending chaos. For a time, wars broke out in hundreds of millions of realms. Demons ran amok, and the chaotic war of the past was restored. In the center of the Azure Sky world, a divine palace stood in the clouds. Immortal trees formed a forest, and mist was dense. There was a 7-colored light that shot into the sky, illuminating the sky. It was gorgeous and mystical. At this time, in front of the divine palace, a white figure stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the setting sun in the distance. From here, one could see the thousands of stars in the Azure Sky world, overlooking the fate of all living beings in the world. Behind him, a white-clothed old man stood quietly with a lonely expression. Young Lord, the immortal devil Ancient Bell is warning. I'm afraid a calamity is coming to the Azure Sky world. The old man's voice was hoarse and old, faintly revealing a trace of exhaustion. Hearing this, the white-clothed figure slowly turned around, revealing a stunningly handsome, jade-like face. He had sharp eyebrows and tall nose. If it wasn't for his hair being tied up, no one would doubt that he was a woman. Elder Xing, didn't the calamity of my Azure Sky world come a long time ago? The corner of the young man's mouth curled up. A pair of bright eyes flickered like stars, revealing endless, immortal intent. I wonder which clan's war chest has been blown by the wind this time. Sigh. The Realm Lord has been missing for more than 200 years. Young Lord, you are the only one who can control the immortal devil Ancient Bell. Could it be that he really didn't leave any news for you? Elder Xing frowned as he looked at the young man in front of him with a complicated gaze. No, but, Elder Xing, did you find anything about the matter I asked you to investigate? The young man shook his head slightly. His white clothes fluttered in the wind, untainted by a speck of dust. Not yet, young lord. Since the establishment of the Realm Lord Palace, no one has ever betrayed us. Did you? Master would never disappear for no reason. Since he did this, there must be a reason. In the entire Azure Sky world, other than that clan, who can hurt Master? However, the ancestor of that clan had an agreement with Master, and he wouldn't break it easily. Thus, I'm guessing that it must be someone trusted by Master. The young man's eyes were clear and cold. Although he was young, there was a sense of disdain about him. But those who are able to injure the Realm Lord must be at the peak of the mortal world. The experts in my palace are all people who have accompanied the Realm Lord for countless years. Why would they betray him now? People's hearts will change. Now that the world is in chaos, Old Xing, I will protect this world Overlord Palace for my master. I believe that given his strength, it's impossible for him to die here. Let's wait for now. The young man sighed softly. His face was full of bitterness, but there was also determination. Actually, he already had many guesses in his heart, but he was alone and helpless now, so he was utterly unable to verify them. The more chaotic the Azure Sky world was, the better it was for him. At the very least, he could legitimately send out many experts to suppress the demons and devils, so that he would have enough time to refine the immortal devil Ancient Bell. As long as he could truly control the bell's power, he would possess the strength to destroy an entire realm. At that time, whether it was the traitors in the palace or the myriad region's ancient race, they would not dare to act rashly against him. But why would his master disappear without a trace? He did not believe that there was someone in the Azure Sky world who could kill his master without a sound. So, his master must not be dead. Yes, young lord. Old Xing sighed and did not say anything in the end. In the realm, Ling Zhao's figure descended from the sky and landed by the lake. At this moment, a graceful figure was sitting cross-legged in front of the ancient forest by the lake. Mist surrounded her, and Dao flowed around her. It was Sheer. Ling Xiao already had some guesses about her background. The Great Void Universe Dragon was one of the 10 great ancestral dragon bloodlines. It controlled time and the Tao of eternity, and its cultivation was supreme. No matter who killed it back then, it was probably not someone Ling Xiao could contend against now. And one could imagine the power contained in an ancestral dragon's essence. With Shi Er's current strength, it would definitely be difficult to fuse with the dragon's essence. But as long as she fused with the dragon's bones first and borrowed the dragon's undying power, it would be feasible. Young master? As if sensing Ling Zhao's aura, Shi Er's beautiful eyes opened, and her face immediately bloomed with a trace of brilliance. Are you used to it here? Ling Xiao smiled gently, his black robes fluttering. Shi Er's pretty face immediately turned red, and she nodded slightly. The spirit Qi here is like an ocean. It's really a holy land for cultivation. It's just, I haven't seen you for a few days, and I miss you. Shi almost snorted at the last sentence. I have something for you. Ling Xiao waved his hand and took out the true bone of a universe dragon. Between heaven and earth, a dragon's roar immediately resounded. Endless divine light rushed into the sky, transforming into a dragon shadow that stretched for thousands of miles. Shi Er's pretty face froze, and she instinctively felt an affinity from her bloodline. This should be the skeleton of your ancestor. I obtained it by chance. You can fuse with it. It might be helpful for your cultivation. According to Ling Zhao's guess, this year was most likely the descendant of the Great Void Universe Dragon. But now that he told her this, it was inevitable that there would be unforeseen events. Ling Xiao was determined to obtain that dragon soul, and he absolutely could not allow any mistakes. The skeleton of my ancestor? Shi Er's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and she reached out to touch the dragon bone. In the next instant, the golden light in the bone suddenly flourished, revealing endless phenomena. There were Tao patterns that spanned thousands of miles, connecting into a shadow, revealing an ancient and powerful aura. Before Shi Er could react, the dragon bone turned into a stream of light out of thin air and poured into Shi Er's body. We are indeed of the same origin. Seeing this scene, the smile on Ling Zhao's face became even gentler. Young master, I'm so hot. Shi Er's face flushed red, and her aura rose steadily. Soon, she touched the divine king level. As for her providence, the moment the dragon bone entered her body, it increased to 6,000. Don't worry and refine this bone. No one will disturb you here. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at the thunderclouds that were gathering above his head. He suddenly reached out his palm and directly dispersed the 10,000 feet long tribulation lightning. Thank you, young master. She bit her red lips with her silver teeth. Her beautiful face was inexplicably seductive. However, Ling Xiao only nodded and called the secret guards to guard this place, instructing them not to let anyone disturb Shi Er's cultivation. Then, his figure suddenly disappeared and reappeared in the Sky Palace. Just now, when he devoured the Blue Dragon Emperor's flesh and divine soul, the demonic blade of Samsara was already showing signs of being unsealed. Now that the situation in the northern border was settled, there was no need for him to worry anymore. Holding the demonic blade, Ling Zhao's eyes suddenly bloomed with boundless demonic light. In his soul sea, a demonic shadow descended from the sky, forming a universe of its own. With a wave of its hand, 3,000 Tao wills, the beginning of primordial chaos, appeared, and Ling Zhao's divine consciousness directly fell into a deep sleep in the thousands of demonic wills. Suddenly, at the end of the darkness, there seemed to be light sprinkling down. Then, that familiar demonic shadow appeared at the end of Ling Zhao's vision again. The place below was a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. In the void, further away, thousands of golden armors flickered with divine light. However, what surprised Ling Xiao was that he saw a familiar figure in the mountain of corpses. Chapter 873. No, immortals. One day, I will slaughter all the immortals in the world. In front of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, a tall figure roared at the sky like a wild bear. Xionghuan's body was already covered in wounds, and his aura was weak. His young face was filled with despair and anger. However, how could an ant intimidate an immortal even with his life as a curse? In the sky, countless golden-armored figures brandished the sabers in their hands, slaughtering all the living beings in this region. At that moment, a ray of black light suddenly bloomed in the sky and scattered. The immortal tribe expert, who had been rebuking the clouds, suddenly stopped in a strange manner. The world was dark, and only the countless immortals were like candles in the night sky, shining with dazzling golden light. But the moment the black light swept past, the candlelight suddenly extinguished and shattered. Not a single sound could be heard from the entire realm. In fact, even Xionghuan could only raise his head in fear and stare at the suddenly pitch-black sky. In a short moment, when there was no more light in the world, the darkness receded like the tide. The 100,000 immortals were still in the same position, and there was no sign of life in them. Plop! Xionghuan knelt on the ground and cried sadly. A low demonic chant sounded in Ling Xiao's mind. Immemorial Heaven Destroyer. Third move, Soul Suppression. Buzz. The world began to collapse, and Ling Xiao's divine soul also woke up from the endless demonic intent. At that moment, there was no change in his expression, and the demonic blade in his hand flickered with black light. Ling Xiao's figure suddenly appeared on the peak of 9 Underworld Mountain, and the busy people immediately bowed. Master, it's all settled. Ling Xiao looked at 9 Underworld with a gentle expression, and the latter's face flashed with gratitude. Master, the 8 demon kings and 17 divine emperors have all submitted. Not bad. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and put Shui Wei, Xionghuan, and Xing Shun into the realm. He waved his hand, and Ziyin immediately turned into her original form and jumped into his arms. I'm going out for a while. You can use this opportunity to unify the northern border. However, don't touch Xingqiu. As soon as he finished speaking, Ling Xiao turned into a graceful figure and headed towards the 10,000 demons sacred mountain in the center of the northern border. In Long Xian's memories, there was a ferocious being sealed under the Saint Mountain. If he was not mistaken, it should be another demonic bone. Now that all the demons in the northern border had submitted and were under the control of the 9 underworlds, there were no more variables. Once he fused with the demon bone, it would be time for him to meet the first princess of Green Hill. As such, the final secret of the Shenzhou continent would be completely revealed. Ziyin, when you were with Qing Chan, have you ever heard of Baijiro's name? Ling Xiao said calmly as he strolled through the clouds. Baijiro, are you talking about the little servant girl by Miss Qing Chan's side? Ziyin nodded. Back when she had followed Yi Qing Chan to the Shenzhou continent, she had yet to take human form. Therefore, neither Dugi Yunjin nor Yuan Ju recognized her. However, at that time, Ziyin had been cultivating in seclusion under the Saint Mountain and would not easily appear. As for Yi Qing Chan, she had a cold personality and did not care about the matters of the Saint Mountain. However, Ziyin had heard that Miss Qing Chan had taken in a servant girl who was a talented demon. As for other matters, she did not ask. You've seen her? Where did she go in the end? Ling Xiao raised an eyebrow, but Ziyin shook her head. Back then, my injuries had yet to heal, and I had been cultivating at the foot of the Divine Mountain. I didn't follow the young miss, and I only occasionally heard the young miss mention that this girl was talented but had gone astray. Went astray? Ling Xiao's lips curled into a playful smile. There was a story behind it. If Baijiro was the one who had injured Yi Qing Chan and worked together with Zhou Yindao to set up a trap and kill Lord Yi. But why was she trapped by Zhou Yindao in Green Hill? Also, it was said that the first princess had come to the lower world to hide. How did she break through the boundary and appear in the four desolates. Yi Fan and Yi Qingchan. One of them had inherited the ancient glaze pagoda, while the other was a reincarnated divine master. Was it a coincidence that they appeared in the same family at the same time, or was it a magic of the Yi family? Master, why are you suddenly asking about this? Ziyan looked at Ling Xiao in confusion. In her eyes, Baijiro was probably just a minor character not worth mentioning. However, after experiencing everything in Shengzhou, Ling Xiao realized that this minor character seemed to be in the plot all along. Back then, Qing Chan returned with serious injuries and was killed by Zhou Yandao. However, a wisp of her divine soul escaped and entered the reincarnation cycle. Do you think, who could have hurt Qing Chan back then? Duga Yunjin? Or Baijiro? Impossible. Ziyan shook her head. Back then, Miss had already entered the venerable realm. Although she had just broken through, the two of them could not have threatened Mississippi. Isn't that so? Ling Xiao frowned slightly. If not for these two, who else in the Shengzhou could have hurt a venerable realm expert? Could it be father or mother? However, since they had endured until now, how could they rashly attack a divine master? Moreover, Gu Weiying had clearly said that no one could break the shackles of this world. Even if Ling Tianlin and the moon of Xianyuan had concealed their strength, they would not be a match for a venerable realm expert. Who could it be? All of a sudden, a chill rose from the bottom of Ling Zhao's heart. He had a faint feeling that there was a mastermind behind the Shengzhou continent. Ziyan, you come from the upper world. Do you know the Ling people? Taigu Ling people? Ziyan was stunned, her eyes flashing with fear. Master, you can't be from the Taigu Ling people, right? What's wrong? Of course I know. The only faction in the Azure Sky world that dares to be called an archaic faction, and also the only faction that can contend with the World Lord's palace. There are even rumors that when the World Lord went on a campaign to conquer 10,000 regions, he took a detour when he reached the territory of the Ling people, not daring to take a step forward. Ziyan took a deep breath, finally coming to a realization. I knew it. Miss is a peerless beauty. How could she have taken a fancy to a prince from the lower world? It turned out that Lord Ling Xiao also had a background from the upper world, and it was the most awesome kind. Oh, so powerful? Ling Xiao's expression turned cold, and he immediately thought of his setting. That's right. If a villain did not have a powerful background, how could he be called a villain? It seemed that the Lord Gu Weiying spoke of was a true expert of the Sky Demon Palace. However, he did not know if this person was a demon emperor or a demon sovereign. Yes. However, Master, the Taigu Ling people have always kept a low profile, and no one has ever seen their true strength. Only when the World Lord reached the pinnacle of the world and issued a decree that the Ling people could sit on half of the Azure Sky world's territory, almost equal to the World Lord's palace, did people know the terror of this ancient clan. Ziyan's eyes flashed with fear. Of course, these are all rumors. The Ling people rarely appear in the Azure Sky world, and they mostly act in their own territory. However, I have never heard of any faction daring to provoke them. Chapter 874. I see. Ling Xiao nodded calmly. He already had a guess in his heart. The Azure Ling people were most likely created by the Sky Demon Palace's old subordinates. However, Ling Xiao didn't know how they escaped the pursuit of the Immortals. The Realm Lord Palace was a force used by the Immortals to suppress the 10,000 races. If he reincarnated in the upper world, he might be exposed. Moreover, the Shangzhou had a strange time order that could greatly shorten the reincarnation time. As for the dragon soul, it could suppress the demonic will. If he could merge with it, he might be able to cover up the Sky Demon's aura. This chessboard could be said to be tight. Even fallen demon generals like Xiong Huan and Liang Yi probably didn't know about it. The Taigu Ling people? Interesting. Master, you and the Taigu Ling people don't ask what you shouldn't ask, Ling Xiao said calmly. Ziyan stuck out her tongue and rubbed against Ling Xiao's chest. Why are you so fierce? Meow. It wasn't until the two of them reached the foot of the 10,000 demons' sacred mountain that they descended from the sky and landed at the mountain gate. The 10,000 demons' sacred mountain was no longer as prosperous as before. The experts in a mountain had either died on the 9 underworlds mountain or had a soul implanted by 9 underworlds and become slaves. Of the 3 demon emperors of the northern border, 2 were dead and 1 surrendered. And it only took 7 days. The name of the 9 underworlds emperor had already spread through the 10,000 races in the northern border. Even if some people were suspicious, they didn't dare to disobey. Welcome, Saint. At the peak of the mountain, a tall figure descended from the sky and bowed respectfully to Ling Xiao. It was the White Raja Emperor sent back by 9 underworlds. Oh, he should be called White Raja now. As for the other demon race experts, they all retreated when they saw Ling Xiao, not daring to look directly at him. Ling Xiao nodded slightly and walked toward the back of the sacred mountain. According to Long Xian's memories, the place where the demons were suppressed was at the bottom of the sacred mountain. There was a formation seal there, but after Long Xian was born, this formation had lost its former power. Even so, the methods of the immortals were still not to be underestimated. Of course, to Ling Xiao, a broken formation could not stop him at all. Soon, Ling Xiao's figure appeared in front of a cave at the bottom of the mountain. Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile when he sensed the demonic intent within it. Ziyan, you stand guard here. No one is allowed to enter. Yes, my lord. Ziyan jumped out of Ling Xiao's embrace and stood at the entrance of the cave, while the latter's figure disappeared. It wasn't until Ling Xiao reached the deepest part of the cave that the scene before him suddenly opened up. An ancient array of golden light shrouded the surroundings, completely blocking his path. The ancient array was arranged according to the 5 elements, and at each corner of the array, there was a corpse sitting cross-legged. Only the fire position at the east was missing, and it should be where Long Xian was suppressed. Even though Ling Xiao did not understand the array Dao, he could tell that the eye of the array Dao was not the power of the 5 elements, but a stone coffin in the middle of the array. Now, the coffin was empty, and what was placed inside was most likely the dragon bone. Using the power of the dragon bone to suppress the demonic bone, I didn't expect that it would create a heavenly mandate. Ling Xiao smiled. According to Long Xian's model, if she had not met him, she would have definitely fought against the Divine Master, and might even have obtained the dragon soul in the middle border, thus embarking on the path of a war god. Unfortunately, she was born in the wrong era and was too arrogant. Of course, what really made Ling Xiao want to kill her was not Long Xian's personality. On the contrary, it was actually easier to subdue this kind of woman who was modeled after Long Outyin. There was no need for tricks or acting skills. As long as he could beat her into submission, she could only follow him loyally. The reason why Ling Xiao wanted to kill her was firstly to force the Blue Dragon Emperor to make a move, and secondly, an Earth Dragon had a lowly bloodline. Even if she had heaven-defying luck, her upper limit was limited. However, sure, it was a true descendant of the ancestral dragon, with the dragon bone and the ancestral dragon bloodline. The chances of her merging with the dragon soul were undoubtedly higher. Wasn't it fun to play with a dragon girl? Ling Xiao held the boundary-breaking talisman and pressed it against the ancient array. The golden light in the array suddenly brightened, and the power of the 5 elements gushed out as if to resist, but in the end, it was broken by Ling Xiao's palm and completely dissipated. Then, Ling Xiao saw that behind the array, a pitch-black skeleton was placed on a jade platform. Demonic will float on it, forming a world of its own. Endless demonic chanting resounded. In front of Ling Xiao, a giant hand seemed to descend from the sky, carrying with it the will to destroy eternity, wanting to completely kill him. Seeing this, Ling Xiao's smile widened. He directly revealed the sky demon and faced the demonic hand head-on. Boom! Heaven and earth were overturned, and the entire 10,000 demons' sacred mountain shattered. Ling Xiao's figure also disappeared and reappeared in the realm. In front of him, The remains of the sky demon turned into a stream of light and covered his left arm. Ling Xiao sat cross-legged on the spot, like a demonic sun, blooming with endless demonic light. Time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. At this time, in the Dan origin sacred ground of the eastern border, above the void, there was suddenly a wave of divine light. Then a white-robed figure stepped from the sky and directly landed in front of the main hall at the peak of the mountain. Get lost. However, the moment the white-robed figure landed, there was suddenly a wave of fire in the main hall, and the divine transformation seal fell from all directions toward his head. Ling Tianlin smiled bitterly. Clear light rose around his body, forming a divine screen out of thin air, blocking the endless fire seal. There was a faint wisp of demonic aura around him, revealing the immortal heavenly might. Moon of Xianyuan walked out of the main hall, a faint shock in her eyes. I'm here for shower. Ling Tianlin sighed softly. There was a touch of vicissitude on his handsome and dignified face. Everyone knew that the Moon of Xianyuan left the Ling people in a fit of anger. Even Ling Xiao thought that their relationship broke down because the Moon of Xianyuan forcefully took away Ling Tian's elixir ocean. In fact, that was not the case. Ling Tianlin, I said that I will not have anything to do with you in this life. If it wasn't for Xiao I would have returned to the Xianyuan ancient clan. Do you really think that I can forgive you for what you did? The Moon of Xuanyuan's expression was cold, and her eyes were full of resentment. I was wrong to lie to you back then. But without the boundary-breaking talisman, Xiao would not have been able to step out of this world. The shackles of this world are impossible to break with our strength. I thought you would understand. Ling Tianlin sighed softly. The bitterness in his eyes did not seem to be fake. So, after all, you chose me because of the holy treasure of the Xianyuan people, right? The Moon of Xianyuan was so angry that she laughed. She slowly closed her eyes and said, Go away. I don't want to see you again in this life. Shower has already suppressed the Beijiang. Next, it should be the last step. Today, I'm not here to ask for your forgiveness. I just have a task. Ling Tianlin shook his head. He waved his hand and threw a golden ancient token to the Moon of Xianyuan. If there are any changes in this battle, I'll leave Shower to you. With the support of the Ling people and the Xianyuan ancient clan, Shower will be able to do something. But if the Ling people do something bad to you, you can use this token to deal with them. One of my spiritual incarnations is inside. With that, Ling Tianlin turned and left. The Moon of Xianyuan looked miserable. Her lips trembled, but she did not say anything in the end. Chapter 875. Ling Tianlin. After all, your clan's plan is the most important thing. The Moon of Xianyuan clenched the golden token in her hand tightly. Her beautiful eyes were full of resentment. However, under this resentment, there was also a trace of sadness that could not be hidden. Yes, until the moment Ling Xiao was born, she realized that she and even the entire Xianyuan ancient clan had been deceived by him. The reason why it was her was because of the ultimate treasure passed down by the Xianyuan people for generations, the world-piercing talisman. The Moon of Xianyuan was originally the most talented genius of the Xianyuan ancient clan. She had the bloodline of the human emperor and was also the young master of the main branch. However, this name was annihilated in an instant before it could completely resound in the billions of realms of the Azure Sky continent. The Taigu Ling people, a hidden ancient clan, were the most mysterious and ancient force in the billions of realms. Even the Xianyuan people, who used to be the overlords of the human race in the Azure Sky continent, could only bow down in front of them. However, she really did not expect that the relationship back then was the beginning of her falling into a trap. But so what? After all, Ling Xiao was flesh and blood that fell from her body. Even if he was the sky demon, he could not change this blood relationship. Furthermore, after being hurt by Ling Xiao, the Moon of Xianyuan now saw Ling Xiao as her only family. The moon of Xianyuan did not believe that the Xianyuan ancient clan did not know about all these schemes. It was just some exchange of interests and involvement of status. The world was full of bitterness, and she could only endure it herself. All these years, she had been living in seclusion in this mountain and nourishing her heart with pills. She thought that she had already let go of her grudges, but she did not expect to see him again. Xiao, you are destined to walk your path alone. However, if the Ling people dare to hurt you, I will kill their entire clan, even if I have to risk my life. The moon of Xianyuan looked up into the distance. Tears appeared at the corners of her eyes. After parting, she would lose everything. This immortal path was really boring. Patriarch, there's news from the Holy Church. Zhou Yindao should be in seclusion. 300 miles to the west of the Danyuan Holy Land, Ling Tianlin stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking calm. Behind him, a black-robed figure bowed and spoke in a rather solemn tone. Since Xiao is so anxious to suppress the northern border, he must have received news that the saint of the sacred sect is in his hands. Hearing this, Ling Tianlin was not surprised at all. Ghost Shadow had been following behind Ling Xiao. His actions did not escape Ling Tianlin's eyes and ears. Ling Tianlin was naturally satisfied with Ling Xiao's temperament. With this boy's means, even if he went to the Azure world, he was bound to flourish. As such, he could finally be at ease. As for the ancient token that he left for the moon of Xianyuan, it was a trump card that he used to keep the Ling people in check. Yes, the Ling people's origin could be traced back to the immortal demon era. But he was not the sky demon's servant, so he could not refuse the clan's plan. But in the end, in his eyes, Ling Xiao was not only the sky demon, but also his son. He knew the moon of Xuanyuan's feelings for Ling Xiao. If this woman wanted to return to the upper world, she would have left long ago. But she did not. Instead, she suppressed all her resentment and silently guarded the Shengzhou and Ling Xiao's side. And this was the reason why Ling Tianlin trusted her. Patriarch, Sir Ghost Shadow's traces have been detected by the young master. I know, Ling Tianlin said indifferently. If Ling Xiao's ruthlessness and decisiveness were the foundation of his footing, then his scheming was the limit of his immortal path. In these 3 years, Ling Xiao had taken every step without missing a single detail. Even Ling Tianlin would sometimes tremble in fear. To be able to detect Ghost Shadow's existence and dispel all doubts, Ling Xiao's actions could be said to be perfect. But sometimes it was not that he could not predict, but that some people hid too deeply. In a chess game that had been planned for 1,000 years, all living things in the world could be chess pieces. Even if Ling Xiao was full of schemes, in the end, he entered the game too late and knew too little. What Ling Tianlin wanted to do was not to reveal the secret, but to become the support he relied on at the most crucial moment to turn the situation around. Only then did Ling Xiao truly understand what it meant to be an immortal demon and what it meant to be vast and boundless. He was born in the Shengzhou and grew up in the wilderness. Although he was the sky demon, he did not have the sky demon's memory. So, in the end, he had never seen the real waves of the immortal path and could not understand the sinister nature of the human heart. Protector, put death on the ground and fight to live, break through thousands of tribulations, and help him step onto the top of the world. Let's go. I haven't fought for hundreds of years. The legend of the white-robed celestial has long disappeared in the Azure realm. Ling Tianlin shook his head and smiled. He turned his head and looked in the direction of the Danyuan sacred ground one last time, then lifted his foot and walked toward the distant mountain. Another 7 days passed. In the realm, the black light suddenly dissipated and the golden sun sprinkled down. Only then did the oppressive and terrifying demonic aura quietly disappear. Ling Xiao stood on the top of the sky, looked at his arm, and slightly exerted force. The void instantly collapsed, and a mighty divine power spread out. At this time, he had entered the 5th stage of the divine emperor realm. With Ling Xiao's current battle strength, even if he did not use the sky demon real body, he was probably able to fight an 8th-stage divine emperor. Master! Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the distant sky. He saw Bai Jishi's figure shuttling through the void, and in the blink of an eye, she was in front of him. Master, I heard them say that Nine Nether has become a demon emperor. You conquered the northern frontier and gave it to her? Yes. Ling Xiao smiled gently and reached out to rub Bai Jishi's little head. What a coincidence. I'm one of the Green Mountains. You can come with me. Humph. Master, I also want to be a demon emperor. You let Nine Nether abdicate, and you make me the demon emperor, okay? Bai Jishi's little face suddenly bulged, and she threw herself into Ling Xiao's arms, shaking his arm. Then you have to think clearly. If you become a demon emperor, you can't go out of the northern frontier. Do you want to follow me? Or do you want to be the master of the northern frontier? Ling Xiao smiled, held Bai Jishi's jade hand, and disappeared. Demon emperor? Master? Oh, of course I choose master. But, master, don't let Nine Nether abdicate. Let her guard the northern frontier, and you make me the demon emperor in name. Let them know how powerful I am. Bai Jishi's pink eyes rolled, and she suddenly thought of a way to have the best of both worlds. You clever little devil. Ling Xiao shook his head and chuckled. He waved his hand at Ziyin and walked towards the green hill. Now that the four frontier was in his hands, as long as he gave the order, thousands of creatures would be willing to sacrifice their lives for him. However, the person who hurt Yi Qingchan really made him feel uneasy. Perhaps this eldest princess of the Green Hill clan would give him some surprises. Of course, even if Ling Xiao returned in disappointment, he could still learn some things about the past 300 years from her. If Ling Xiao guessed correctly, this woman was most likely Meng Yuan's birth mother. Okay, Master, you're the best. My ambition since young is to become a demon emperor. But after meeting Master, I don't want to work hard anymore. Master, please satisfy me this time. Bai Jishi pouted her small mouth and begged. Okay, then I'll ask Nine Nether to announce to the northern frontier that you're the demon emperor. But what if someone objects? Since he had nothing to do, Ling Xiao deliberately showed a worried expression. Someone objects? Bai Jishi bit her finger and seemed to be lost in thought. Then I'll secretly write them down. Write them down? Yes. When the time comes, I'll ask Master to kill them all and make me the demon emperor again. Then, no one will object. Ziyin, who was following behind the two, couldn't help but laugh. The corners of Ling Xiao's mouth curled up into a brilliant smile. Under his feet were green mountains and ancient forests. Above his head were the clouds. The girl in his arms was charming and cute, and the beauty behind him was loyal and enchanting. Wasn't this the most beautiful scenery on the path to immortality? But without strength, how could he have everything? But one day, when a person traveled alone, immortals and demons would avoid him, and ghosts would retreat. This world would be stable. Chapter 876. Look, it's Fairy Xinyuan. Fairy Xinyuan is here. North of the azure sky world, in a barren forest, there were layers of divine trees and peaks. A waterfall fell from the peak of the mountain like the Milky Way, making a deafening sound. At the peak of the mountain, a beam of golden light stirred up the clouds. Multicolored radiance rose and fell, and it gave rise to an endless charm. A slender and tall figure landed gracefully at the foot of the mountain. She raised her head and looked at the place where the golden light was emitting. The woman was dressed in red. Her face was picturesque, and her eyes were like glass. Her hair was not tied up and was scattered behind her head, emitting a bright light. Her jade feet were white and delicate. A red string was tied around her feet and neck, making her look inexplicably enchanting. But at this time, her face was extremely cold, as if she did not notice the fervent gazes of the people around her. She had a proud and aloof temperament. Xinyuan Lengyu, a famous beauty in the azure sky world. Her family background, talent, and cultivation were all top-notch. The Xinyuan clan was originally the emperor clan of this world. Among them, the ancestor of Xinyuan was known to have led the human race to occupy a region during the chaotic war between gods and demons. He fought against gods and demons and protected the peace of the race. He was honored by later generations as the human emperor. In that era, the fate of heaven and earth was in the hands of the immortals, demons, and demons. The human race had no emperor. The human emperor, Xian Yuan, sealed the heavens with his divine blood and intimidated the ages. But as the immortals unified the 9 heavens, the human race fell apart. They either became lackeys or were suppressed. The azure sky world fell into the hands of the Realm Master. The Xian Yuan people lived in seclusion and did not care about worldly affairs for thousands of years. People only said that the human emperor Xian Yuan was unparalleled. But the immortals reigned supreme. Who remembered who protected the human race under the divine blood during the chaotic war? The path to immortality was sorrowful. Even as a deposed emperor clan, Xian Yuan was alienated by the other races. They did not dare to get close to him at all. But no matter how desolate it was, in the azure sky world, no one dared to underestimate the name Xian Yuan. Since the fairy is here, I'm afraid the fortune here is not fated with us. Hey, to be able to see fairy Xian Yuan, wouldn't that be a great fortune for you and me? The crowd immediately burst into an uproar. The golden radiance from the mountain had already soared into the heavens for 3 days. An immortal treasure must have appeared. However, Xian Yuan Lingyue's talent was close to monstrous. She had the ancestral awakening sacred blood, and her cultivation had long since surpassed her peers. With her present, no one dared to compete for the treasure. I was wondering who it was. Isn't this the princess of Xian Yuan imperial clan? At this moment, an enchanting sneer came from the forest. Subsequently, a few figures walked over in a single file. They wore luxurious clothes, and their faces carried a wisp of arrogance. At the head of the group, a beautiful woman clad in golden robes was staring coldly at Xian Yuan Lingyue with a mocking expression on her face. It's Du Wanqing from the Longevity Du family. There's also Nangong Feihai of the ancient Hidden Clan. That's the second prince of the Holy Spirit Immortal Dynasty, Ji Er Shao. No, why does it sound like you're mocking me? None of your business. But why the 3 of them together? Haven't you heard? Nangong Feihai and Ji Shao Tian are both pursuing Goddess Du. Is it that exciting? There's going to be a good show. In front of the forest, many ancient sect disciples' faces flashed with excitement. Du Wanqing's appearance could be considered beautiful, but her temperament was slightly inferior to Xian Yuan Lingyue's. The 2 of them were similar in age and were often compared. However, in terms of appearance, talent, or background, Xian Yuan Lingyue was clearly stronger. However, the Xian Yuan people, as the clan of the crippled Azure Emperor, had always been targeted by the Realm Lord Palace. Now that they were living in seclusion, they did not dare to make enemies. Therefore, whether it was Du Wanqing or the 2 Azure Emperor monsters, they did not put this princess in their eyes. Of course, if it was tens of thousands of years ago, everyone would have to kneel when they saw an emperor. However, the human heart had always been like this. How could a fallen phoenix be arrogant? This was especially true for the ancient sect clans that had been suppressed by the Xian Yuan Emperor clan for tens of thousands of years. Now, they wanted nothing more than to stomp on the Xian Yuan people to vent their anger. Miss Du, be careful with your words. The Emperor clan is a thing of the past. Aren't you afraid that the Azure Emperor Guard will accuse you of misleading the public by calling me princess? Xian Yuan Lingyue's expression did not change, but her pretty face turned cold. She had already checked the immortal item on the mountain peak. It was a jade flame golden lotus. Now that her cultivation had fallen into shackles, she could use it to break the shackles. However, with her cultivation, it was naturally not difficult for her to fight any one of the 3. But if she fought all 3, she had no chance of winning. You really think too highly of yourself just because I called you a princess? Xian Yuan Lingyue, why aren't you staying in your clan like a coward? Why have you come to my wood spirit region? Du Wanqing snorted coldly. This realm was the territory of her Longevity Du family. not to mention a crippled young master. Even the successor of an ancient sect would have to give her some face. To train, Xin Yuan Lingyue raised her eyebrows and looked at the golden glow on the mountain peak. At this moment, the glow extended continuously and seemed to be at its peak. It was obvious that the golden lotus was most likely about to mature. Xin Yuan Lingyue, tell me, what's the point of always pretending to be pure? My wood spirit region does not welcome you. Get out. Du Wanqing's expression was mocking. When she saw Xin Yuan Lingyue looking at the mountain peak, a hint of anger flashed in the depths of her eyes. The fortune of heaven and earth belongs to the fated. Miss Du is so overbearing. Aren't you afraid of attracting public anger? Xin Yuan Lingyue lowered her eyes and looked at the girl beside her. There seemed to be divine runes rippling in her beautiful glass-like eyes. That's right. The fated will get it. But I said that you, Xin Yuan Lingyue, are not the fated one. What can you do? Get out of my wood spirit region, or don't blame me for being impolite. Du Wanqing snorted and pointed at the mountain peak. Young Master Nangong, I heard that your movement technique is unique. Can I trouble you to help me pluck this spiritual item in the mountain? Fei Hai is willing to help. Nangong Fei Hai's expression was happy. He took a step forward and instantly swept toward the mountain peak. After seeing the scene of the apprenticeship, Xin Yuan Lingyue no longer hesitated. Spiritual light fluctuated around her body, and a torrential momentum swept across 100 miles. She was about to ascend the mountain. Fairy Xin Yuan, it's best if you don't act rashly. Ji Xiao shook his head and stretched out his hand to stop Xin Yuan Lingyue. Dao runes also spread around his body as he was ready to attack. Xin Yuan Lingyue, aren't you very arrogant? If you have the guts, do in my wood spirit region. Let's see if the Xin Yuan ancient clan can protect you. Du Wanqing crossed her arms in front of her chest and looked even more arrogant. With the strength of the Xin Yuan ancient clan, dealing with the longevity Du family was not a big problem. But the problem was, did they dare to do it? The Realm Lord conquered the world, suppressed the 10,000 races, and gave them territories. Only the Xin Yuan clan was chased to the desolate barren desert and strictly ordered to not take half a step out of the clan's territory. Otherwise, they would be treated as traitors. And this was the reason why Du Wanqing dared to be so presumptuous. Buzz. But, just as she finished speaking, the sound of a sword suddenly resounded through the heavens and the earth, and it shook the world. Before Du Wanqing could turn her head to take a look, she heard a miserable shriek coming from the top of the mountain. Chapter 877. A dazzling light bloomed in the sky. A wisp of sword intent, like the chaotic light at the beginning of the primordial chaos, pierced through the sky, cut through the blue dome, and fell from the sky. Before Nangong Fei Hai could even react, his figure was sent flying and landed at the foot of the mountain. At this moment, there was a glaring wound on his chest. If the sword intent hadn't been restrained, this sword strike would have been enough to kill him on the spot. Although Nangong Fei Hai couldn't be considered the top genius of the Azure Sky world, his cultivation base was already at the God Emperor realm, and he could be considered the top of his generation. Could it be that the person who came was an expert of the older generation? Just as everyone looked at each other and raised their heads to look at the sky, they saw a white-robed figure descending gracefully from the void thousands of miles away. He was like an otherworldly immortal, neither fast nor slow, graceful and indifferent. The world lost its color, and all was silent. Green lotuses of the great Tao bloomed under the young man's feet. As divine light fluctuated, it was even more dazzling than the immortal treasures on the mountain. The young man was dressed in a white immortal robe that was spotlessly clean. His appearance was handsome and otherworldly. He stood there as if he had merged with the sun and moon, emitting a resplendent glow. Even Du Wanqing was a little dazed at this moment. Xin Yuan Lingyue frowned slightly, and her beautiful eyes flickered with a hint of coldness. She had never been interested in this kind of arrogant young master who liked to show off. However, he dared to injure Du Wanqing's people in the wood spirit region. This courage was worthy of praise. He's so handsome. Du Wanqing unconsciously clenched her hands and placed them in front of her chest. Her eyes were filled with love, and she couldn't extricate herself. Pucci! Nangong Feihai spat out another mouthful of blood, and his face was incomparably pale. Who dares to be impudent in front of Miss Wanqing? Ji Xiao looked at the girl beside him, and a hint of gloominess flashed through his eyes. Du Wanqing was the only daughter of the longevity Du family's master. In other words, as the second prince of the immortal dynasty, he had no chance of becoming a crown prince. If he could climb up to this young lady, his future immortal path would definitely be smooth. It seemed like it was time to show off. That's right. Who are you? How can you casually injure people? If you apologize to me, I can let bygones be bygones. Du Wanqing's pretty face blushed slightly. She had already forgotten about Nangong Feihai and Nangong Li. Furthermore, the magnificent and domineering aura of that sword strike just now inexplicably made her admire him. Killing in anger, incomparably cold and arrogant. Wasn't this the cultivation of a peerless swordsman? On the path to immortality, which young man didn't have a dream of being a sword immortal who wielded a sword that was 3 feet long? Which girl didn't have the beautiful hope that the person in her dreams would be a peerless sword immortal? He was dressed in white and had a green sword. This young man who had suddenly appeared seemed to be the most perfect model of a Tao companion in the hearts of all young girls. But when did the Azure Sky world have such a monstrous sword genius? Hey, I'm talking to you. Why don't you look at me? Du Wanqing's charming face was filled with shame and anger as she bitterly bit her red lips. Hearing this, the young man in white only glanced at her indifferently. But in an instant, this young lady of the Du family's face was boiling hot, and she quietly lowered her head. It was the feeling of being unable to resist. It was as if he was a natural enemy. Buzz! The young man in white stretched out his hand and grasped the golden radiance of the mountain peak. Then he lifted his foot and stepped in the air, landing in front of everyone. Is he going to personally pluck this golden lotus and give it to me? Du Wanqing's heart pounded wildly, and she suddenly felt a little dazzled. At this moment, the ancient forest was already dead silent. Many ancient clan prodigies and immortal sect disciples looked shyly at the white-robed figure, lamenting how such a handsome young man could exist in this world. Here you go. However, facing everyone's gazes, the young man's face was expressionless. Instead, he raised the golden lotus in his hand and handed it to Xianyuan Longyu. In an instant, everyone's faces were a little dazed. Xianyuan Longyu also looked up in surprise. Looking at the handsome face close to her, she didn't say a word for a long time. This is the first time I see you, and I feel sorry for you. I wonder if I can have the honor of knowing your name. A warm smile suddenly blossomed on the white-robed youth's face. Even though Xianyuan Linyue had a proud and aloof personality and was on her guard, she still felt a slight rush of excitement under this warm smile. His smile was clean and pure, without any evil intentions. It was like sunlight that pierced through one's heart. Xianyuan Longyu. So you're from a Xianyuan clan. Senior human sovereign is indomitable and has the sacred blood of an immortal. This is my respect. The young man in white nodded slightly and placed the golden lotus in the young girl's hand. There's an ancient site in the south. If you don't mind, you can go with me. You, how dare you? How dare you get close to the crippled Emperor clan? At this moment, Du Wanqing had already woken up from her beautiful dream. When she saw the young man in white's amiable expression, a trace of resentment arose in her heart. The crippled Emperor clan? Xianyuan ancient clan is the ancestor of the human race. If there was no human sovereign, where would you and I be? The young man in white's eyes were cold, but killing intent gradually appeared in Du Wanqing's eyes. Do you know who I am? You dare to hurt my friend. Today, you won't be leaving the realm of with spirit. Oh, hurt him? What's wrong with killing him? The young man in white frowned slightly with a disdainful expression. Arrogant. Today, I'll kill you on behalf of Miss Du. Ji Xiao roared angrily. Spiritual light bloomed around him. An ancient halberd in his hand broke through the sky and swept toward the young man in white. Hum! The void trembled. An endless clear light dazzled everyone's eyes. Everyone only saw a wisp of sword intent leisurely flashing by. Then, Ji Zhao's body fell from the sky, lifeless, killing an emperor with a single sword strike. The resentment in Du Wanqing's eyes instantly froze. She stared blankly at the two figures in the distance. Her lips trembled slightly, but in the end, she didn't dare to say anything more. How dare you kill the second prince of the sacred spirit celestial dynasty? Leave your name if you dare. My surname is Ling. The young man in white didn't look back. He left with Xianyuan Lungyu. However, when they heard the name Ling, a trace of shock and fear appeared on the faces of the prodigies. Ling? In the entire Azure world, there was only one race with the surname Ling, and only one race dared to put the Archean era before their own race. The Taigu Ling people had a sword immortal name. Since then, there was a legend in the Azure world, but still, no one knew what the white-robed Lin Xian's name was. The mysteriousness of the Ling clan was evident, and that was the first time the moon of Xianyuan and Ling Tianlin met. That year, they were 18 and in the prime of their youth. In the next few decades, Ling Tianlin and Xianyuan Lungyu traveled the world and were inseparable. In the next 100 years, the two disappeared at the same time and never appeared again. Some people said that they had ascended to the immortal realm. Others said that Lin Xian was tired of the disputes of the mortal world and lived in seclusion with Xianyuan Lungyu. But no matter what, this immortal couple had long been respected by the people of the Azure world. Of course, what the world didn't know was that when Ling Tianlin and Xianyuan Lungyu fell in love, he went to the Shengzhou continent in the name of traveling the immortal realm and obtained the Xianyuan ancient clan's boundary-breaking talisman. Ling people were reincarnated for 19 generations. Therefore, after Ling Tianlin's generation, the Ling people no longer had any children. They were just waiting for one person to return. This was the story of Ling Tianlin and Xianyuan Lungyu. It was supposed to be perfect. Unfortunately, the Ling people had planned for tens of thousands of years. All this beauty was completely destroyed the moment Ling Xiao was born. Only then did the moon of Xianyuan understand that she had fallen into the Ling people's trap from the first time they met. Chapter 878. Northern Border, Green Hill. Although the mountains here were not steep, they had a series of ups and downs. The ancient trees in the mountains were lush and straight. From afar, it looked like a sea connecting to the sky, full of vitality. Ling Xiao stood in the air with his hands behind his back and gave Zi Yin a look. The latter understood tacitly and immediately disappeared. Ling Xiao still didn't know the relationship between Zhou Yandao and the first princess of the Green Hill Fox clan. If Zi Yin suddenly appeared and was recognized, it might cause trouble. Young master, this is Green Hill, where the Fox clan has lived for generations. Bai Jishi hugged Ling Xiao's arm, a rare trace of fear on her face. Young master, when I sneaked out, I wanted to go to the eastern border to look for you. Then, hoo, my ancestor is very fierce. Young master, if she hits me later, you must protect me. Don't worry. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Since the Green Hill Fox clan had not interfered in the northern border's turmoil, there were only two possibilities in Ling Xiao's view. Either they had abandoned Bai Jishi, and no matter who won or lost, it had nothing to do with the Fox clan, or they wanted to find a chance to survive in the chaos. Bai Jiro was suppressed by the Divine Master. Although she was not killed, there must be a reason. The ancient glazed pagoda was Yi Qingchan's natal spiritual treasure. The Divine Master had always wanted to take it for himself, and it was probably not just for the great demons in the pagoda. After all, those demons had been suppressed for thousands of years, and their cultivation was already very weak. Under the shackles of the Shengzhou continent, the Divine Master was already invincible. Why would he spend so much effort to find a few outdated demons? I knew it. Young master loves me the most. Young master, that Phoenix Rouge said, you did it with him. When will you do it with me? Bai Jishi blushed and blinked her pink eyes, looking at Ling Xiao expectantly. If you could put these thoughts on cultivation, you wouldn't be a third-grade divine marquis now. Wait until you become a divine emperor. Ling Xiao reached out and rubbed Bai Jishi's head. He then walked towards Xingqiu. Buzz. However, just as the two of them appeared in the sky above the green hill, they saw a wave of matrices emanating from the foot of the mountain. Layers upon layers of matrices transformed into endless matrices, blocking their path. Xingqiu secludes itself from the world and will not see any visitors. Young master, please stop. Are you blind? Don't you know who I am? Bai Jishi's little face froze for a moment. Then she suddenly became angry. She put her hands on her waist and walked in front of Ling Xiao. Ninth princess? On top of the green hill, two girls suddenly walked out and looked at Bai Jishi in surprise. The ninth princess ran away from home and came back. Quickly report this to the patriarch. Don't let her get away this time. Bai Jishi's pretty face became redder. She rubbed the corner of her clothes and said angrily in her heart, this princess's gentle image has been destroyed by you. Buzz. In the distant sky, the sound of rushing wind could be heard. An old figure led a group of Fox Clan experts over, arriving in front of Ling Xiao in the blink of an eye. The light was leisurely, and the matrices flickered and disappeared without a trace. I think this must be the saint of the sacred sect. I am Bai Qian of the Green Hill. Greetings, saint. Bai Qian bowed slightly. Behind him, the nine-tailed fox queen's expression changed slightly, and she bowed as well. Bai Qian. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, and the corner of his mouth seemed to be playful. Qian, is that you? Where is your yi? She? May I know why the saint has come? The nine-tailed fox queen's face was obviously gloomy. In her life, she had 9 daughters. Her eldest daughter was extremely talented and followed the divine master. In the end, she was trapped in the abyss and could never get out. Now, the most talented 9th princess of the Green Hill had an ambiguous relationship with the saint of the sacred sect. How could she be at ease? Oh, I heard that your eldest princess used to follow the divine master. I have something to ask her. Ling Xiao said indifferently and took a deep look at the 9-tailed fox queen. It was just a glance, but it instantly made the great demon of the northern frontier feel a deep fear from the bottom of her heart. She had heard about what had happened in the northern frontier in the past few days. The saint of the sacred sect led 3 rank, 9 powerhouses to kill the new demon emperor and the blue dragon emperor, and made 9 nether the emperor. From then on, the northern frontier no longer had the 3 emperors and 10 kings. There was only the 9 nether emperor. Such a young hero was not someone she could provoke. Haha. Saint, please follow me. Bai Qian's eyes narrowed slightly, and he glared at the 9-tailed fox queen. Saint, please. Thank you. Ling Xiao smiled gently, and the coldness on his body dissipated instantly. He followed Bai Qian into the depths of the green hill. Saint, this is the place. When everyone landed on the top of the abyss, Bai Qian and the rest did not move forward. Ling Xiao nodded slightly. Jishi, wait for me here. Sir, Bai Jishi was about to speak, but she saw Ancestor Bai Qian shake his head slightly. She immediately shut her mouth and did not dare to say more. Bai Qian only sighed softly when Ling Xiao stepped into the abyss. Ancestor, why don't you let me go down with sir? Let me tell you, I am now the demon emperor of the northern frontier. Sir promised me that he will announce to the northern frontier in a few days and make me the emperor. Bai Jishi looked at Bai Qian angrily and complained with her small mouth. Sigh. However, Bai Qian did not open his mouth at this time. He only sighed deeply. With Bai Jishi's temperament, how would she know the meaning of the 2 words, demon emperor, if there was no power? Throughout history, which demon king and demon emperor of the northern frontier did not fight through mountains of corpses and seas of blood? The reason why these two words frightened thousands of demons was not because of the emperor's surname Wang, but because of the glory of the blood that flowed in it. How sad was it to make you the emperor? If this emperor could not rule the world, how was he different from a pig or a dog? The saint came personally and unified the demon clan, but did not do anything to the Green Hill. Bai Qian would not believe it if it was only because of Bai Jishi, but Bai Jiro was the divine master's forbidden area. Why did he come down to the abyss this time? Jishi, how did you and the saint get to know each other? Ancestor, this is Lord Ling Xiao that I mentioned to you before. As for when he became the saint, I don't know. Bai Jishi curled her lips. This stinky young master, he actually hid it from me for so long. If I knew that you were the saint, I would not have kept such a low profile. I would have declared myself as the king long ago. Why would I need to monopolize the limelight in the netherworld? Humph. Lord Ling Xiao, you mean you already know this young master? Bai Qian frowned slightly. His eyes suddenly flashed with a touch of surprise. Although he had never seen the saint, it was rumored that the saint had been cultivating with the divine master and had never appeared in the world. Was the rumor false, or was the saint fake? Yes. When I sneaked into the lower bound, I met Lord Ling Xiao. If it was not for young master, I would have died in the hands of the Saint Palace of Blood Soul. Bai Jishi's big eyes flashed with a touch of confusion. What was wrong with the ancestor? He was already so old. Why was he still so flustered? Saint Palace of Blood Soul? Bai Qian's face was dull. He turned and looked at the nine-tailed fox empress, but did not say anything in the end. At this point, she already had no other choice. No matter who this Ling Xiao was or why he came to the Green Hill, it seemed that it was not something that she could stop. The so-called hiding from the world was like a joke in the face of absolute power. Forget it. Whether it was a tribulation or a fate, it could only be decided by the heavens. Chapter 879. Asterisk da da da. Asterisk in the depths of the dark abyss. The sound of unhurried footsteps suddenly rang out. Ling Zhao's figure descended from the top of the abyss and stared at the dark abyss in front of him, his eyes narrowing slightly. At this time, he didn't feel any spirit array seals in this abyss, nor did he sense the aura of any master. In other words, Bai Jiro seemed to have willingly been imprisoned and was not being forcibly imprisoned. It wasn't until Ling Xiao suddenly saw a dim light in front of him that his footsteps came to a halt. At the end of his line of sight, a white-robed figure was sitting quietly. Her long black hair covered half of her face. But even so, the remaining half of her face was still breathtakingly beautiful. Her thin lips and beautiful eyes were closed, like a peerless ancient painting, like a beautiful landscape. In short, when he saw her, Ling Xiao felt a kind of calm and peaceful aura. This kind of feeling was not due to her temperament, but rather the accumulation of time. However, this Bai Jiro was no more than 300 years old, the same age as Nine Nether. Even Yin didn't have this kind of aura. Inexplicably, Ling Xiao felt a little confused. Are you Bai Jiro? Ling Xiao opened his mouth and broke the silence. Although he didn't feel any spiritual pressure fluctuations from Bai Jiro, Ling Xiao instinctively felt that she was somewhat familiar. Was it because of Bai Jishi or Meng Yuan? At this time, Ling Xiao had opened a domain barrier so that Meng Yuan could hear the conversation between the two of them and learn about the true history of the Shenzhou continent. Who are you? Bai Jiro opened her eyes and gently brushed her hair with her jade white hands. This simple movement filled with a myriad of emotions. Who I am is not important. I came here today because I have a few questions to ask you. Ling Xiao stood with his hands crossed behind his back, his temperament indifferent, giving off a kind of transcendent aura. Bai Jiro just frowned and said in a cold tone, "Since you came here, you should know why I'm trapped here. Are you not afraid of bringing disaster upon yourself? What is your relationship with the Divine Master, oh Zhou Yandao?" Ling Xiao shook his head. Bai Jiro had been trapped here for more than 10 years. For a monster's lifespan, that was just the blink of an eye. However, many major events that changed the fate of the Shenzhou continent had happened in the past decade. Yi Qingchan was reborn, and the sky demon was born. Was all of this a coincidence, or was it intentional? Zhou Yindao, looks like you're not from the Saint Church. The vigilance on by Giraud's face slowly dissipated a bit. However, young man, I advise you, knowing too much may not be good for you. Don't you want to kill Zhou Yindao and regain your freedom? Ling Xiao was not in a hurry. He was not clear about Baijiro's attitude toward Zhou Yindao, so he could only proceed step by step. After all, no one knew if this woman had a way to secretly contact the Divine Master. Yes, of course. I wish for him to die all the time. However, he was already a Yuan venerate. Who in the entire Xingzhou could be his match? It doesn't matter if I die, but I can't implicate the Qing Qiu clan. Baijiro sighed. Her eyebrows were full of helplessness. Unless what? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows, while Baijiro's eyes flashed with resentment. Unless Lord Yi has reincarnated. She has already returned. What? Baijiro was stunned. Her eyes widened as she stared at Ling Xiao. You're saying that Lord Yi has returned? That's right. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. He did not see any flaws in Baijiro's reaction. Could it be that Yi Qingchan and Yi Fan were from the same clan, and she really did not know about this? Or could it be that she had been captured and brought back to the Shengzhou continent after giving birth to Yi Fan, while Yi Qingchan was far away in the Black Sword sect and had not been involved with the Foliaceae? This was not impossible. After all, Yi Qingchan was a woman of destiny. She was blessed with good fortune, so avoiding calamity was a result of her providence. However, Ling Xiao still felt that something was wrong. That's great. That's great. Lord Yi. Baijiro's body trembled. She could not hide her excitement, and tears appeared in her eyes. This is karma, karma, karma. Young man, where is Lord Yi now? Can I see her? I'm afraid not. If I'm not wrong, Qingchan should have gone to the middle border of the Shengzhou continent. I'm here today to find out what happened 300 years ago and then find a way to save her. First Princess, what happened back then? Ling Zhao's expression was indifferent, and his black eyes were deep. It seemed that the first princess of Qingqiu had a past with Yi Qingchan and Zhou Yindao. However, Ling Xiao still could not see what kind of role she played. This feeling was quite strange. This was the first time he could not see through someone. Before I say anything, tell me, how do you want to help Lord Yi? With your strength. Baijiro took a deep breath. Her expression suddenly became serious. First Princess, don't worry. Since I dare to come here, I must have full confidence. Who will want to die? That's true. After all, Lord Yi is back. My mission has been completed. There's no harm in telling you. Baijiro pondered for a moment and finally nodded. I was originally Lord Ye's servant girl, and Zhou Yindao was a sweetheart I met when I was traveling in the Shengzhou continent. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed slightly. Some of the fragmented clues in the bottom of his heart actually connected together with this sentence, forming a picture. Back then, when I joined the Holy Church, I followed Lord Yi. Zhou Yindao also followed me to the central region. Lord Yi seemed to have noticed that this person's heart was not right. Although he was extremely talented, he had a demonic intent. Therefore, Lord Yi did not allow me to meet him again. But at that time, I was young and ignorant. I was deceived by him. The more Lord Yi tried to stop me, the more I couldn't bear it. In the end, I hid it from Lord Yi and married him. Later, he was angry with Lord Yi for stopping our marriage. I also knew that he had great ambitions, so I often took the sacred sect's spiritual pills and treasures to help him cultivate. But Lord Yi was right. The evil intentions in his body were getting stronger and stronger. I was very scared. Once, I heard Lord Yi mention that her natal spiritual treasure could suppress the evil intentions. So, Baijiro closed her eyes in despair. Ling Xiao had already guessed what happened next. Baijiro used some unknown method to steal the glazed ancient pagoda and gave it to Zhou Yindao. She wanted to suppress the evil intentions in him, but she did not expect him to completely fall into the evil path. So, the person who entered the glazed ancient pagoda was Zhou Yindao. Feng Ling had said that before she transformed, she felt that someone had entered the Glaze ancient pagoda. 300 years ago, there was a forbidden body in the Shenzhou continent. It seemed that this forbidden body was Zhou Yandao, who had obtained the Sky Demon's remains in the Glaze ancient pagoda. That's right. At that time, I did not know what Zhou Yandao had obtained in the Glaze ancient pagoda. In short, when I returned the pagoda to Lord Yi, she immediately sensed it. Baizhiro nodded fiercely, her eyes flashing with fear. I saw that Lord Yi was angry, so I told her the reason. I did not expect Lord Yi to return the Glaze ancient pagoda to me and send me to the lower realm. I see. Ling Xiao sighed in his heart. He finally understood why Baizhiro could appear in the Four Wastelands. Chapter 880. With the abilities of the Foliaceae, it should not be too difficult for them to pass through the barriers in their own territories. This was the reason why Ling Xiao had doubts when he first met the Bloodhall swordsman. Ordinary forces, apart from those who had comprehended the laws of space or those who controlled a divine artifact, would not be able to pass through the barriers. However, the Bloodhall swordsman could appear in the eastern wilderness and kill Baijishi. Therefore, Ling Xiao guessed that the Blood Soul Temple might be related to the saint. The reason why Yi Qingchuan gave the ancient Glaze pagoda to Baizhiro and sent her to the lower world was very simple. Yi Qingchuan probably already knew that Zhou Yandao had fused with the demon bone and would be a big problem in the future. Even with her strength, she could not guarantee that she could kill the demon bone. Moreover, there might be other demon bones sealed in the ancient Glaze pagoda. However, what made Ling Xiao a little confused was why Yi Qingchuan would give this important task to Baizhiro. There were many strong cultivators in the saint, and they were all loyal. Why would she trust someone who had betrayed her? Secondly, even if Yi Qingchuan was not confident that she could kill the Sky Demon, why didn't she ask the Azure Foliaceae for help? Ling Xiao already knew from Xian that Yi Qingchuan had been slandered by the Foliaceae and was banished to the Shenzhou continent to become the guard of this prison. The spirit Qi in the lower world could not be compared to the Azure world. Moreover, there was the Aeon Dragon Seal here, which shackled the heavenly Tao. Could it be that Yi Qingchuan did this in a fit of pique? Ling Xiao frowned, and his mind was filled with thoughts. Although everything Baizhiro said was reasonable and flawless, he still felt that it was a little strange. It seemed that everything was too coincidental. Yi Qingchuan had once left the central border to search for the Sky Demon. It was probably at that time that she met the Great Demon Wenruyu. However, she was already in the revered realm at that time. So how could she be injured by Zhou Yandao, who had just merged with the Devil Bone, and accidentally die? Furthermore, Baizhiro had been in the lower realm for 300 years. Just when Yi Qingchuan was reborn, she gave birth to a child, left behind the ancient Glaze pagoda, and returned to the upper realm. If all of this was caused by Yi Qingchuan's luck, it wouldn't be unreasonable, but it was a very strange feeling. But if everything Baizhiro said was a lie, then Ling Xiao could not think of a reason why she would do that. Her hatred for Zhou Yandao must be real. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been imprisoned here. At the same time, Ling Xiao also expressed his intention to overthrow the saint. It was useless for her to lie to him. Since you were sent to the lower realm by Qingchuan, how did you know that she had died? Ling Xiao suddenly thought of something and looked at Baizhiro coldly. I know that Lord Yi sent me to the lower realm to bring the ancient Glaze pagoda out of the Shenzhou continent. The stronger one's cultivation is, the more dangerous it is to go to the lower realm. At that time, I was only in the first level of the Divine King realm. I was the servant with the lowest cultivation level by Lord Ye's side. After I gave birth to Fan, I used all of my spiritual power as the price to seal the pagoda in his spirit sea. Then, I secretly returned to the Shenzhou continent to find out about Lord Yi and Zhou Yandao. But I didn't. Baizhiro smiled bitterly. All these years, the reason why Zhou Yandao didn't kill me was because he had placed a trap in my spirit sea. He had obtained some good fortune in the ancient Glaze pagoda and was afraid that Lord Yi would find out about it. So, he sealed my spirit sea so that it would shatter upon contact. But I didn't expect that it would become a trap to restrain him. So, you found out about Yi Qingchan's death from him. That's right. Not only did I find out about Lord Ye's death, I also found out that the thing he obtained from the ancient glazed pagoda was the remains of a sky demon. Now, he is a high and mighty god in the eyes of the world, but behind his back, he is a real demon, a sky demon. Baijiro's emotions were stirred up, but then she felt a little disappointed. But these things, let alone the world, I think even the Qingqiu clan may not believe me. If I spread this news, I'm afraid the Qingqiu clan will be annihilated. I see. You and Zhou Yindao, do you have a daughter? Ling Xiao nodded silently, the doubts in his heart dispelled. It seemed that Yi Qingchan's reincarnation in the lower realm was fate. The ancient glazed pagoda was her natal spiritual treasure. Perhaps it was because of this karma that she was born in the eastern wilderness Foliaceae and had the opportunity to reclaim the ancient glazed pagoda. How do you know? Baijiro was obviously taken aback. Her eyes flashed with surprise. It's just that our daughter died at birth, died? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. He finally understood why Mingyuan was sealed by Zhou Yindao for more than 200 years. Although this divine master was ruthless and heartless, he still had some feelings for his daughter. What do you plan to do next? What plans can I have? I've decided to live here alone for the rest of my life and pray quietly to atone for my past sins. Baijiro sighed softly. Her eyebrows were full of loneliness. All right. In the end, Ling Xiao did not say anything more and turned to leave. Since Baijiro came to the lower realm 300 years ago, she probably did not know who hurt Yi Qingchan. It seemed that the final answer to this mystery would have to be found from the Divine Master. Calculating the time, Yi Qingchan had been in the central region for more than a year. He wondered if she had found the divine item that led her there. But no matter what, the Divine Master's seclusion was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As long as she emerged with the dragon bone, he should leave for the central region and plot for the dragon soul. Although this trip was extremely dangerous, it was a step he had to take. Using the power of the 4 regions to kill the Divine Master and merge with the dragon soul, he would truly have the opportunity to reach the peak of the Shenzhou continent. Although the sky demon's body was terrifying, under the suppression of a Xiantian life form, it would be very difficult for Ling Xiao to step into the sovereign realm. The only way out was to merge with the will of the world. As for whether the Divine Master had merged with the dragon soul, Ling Xiao was not worried in the slightest. According to Ziyin, the dragon soul's power was boundless and not something a sovereign realm cultivator could touch. Since Long Xian and Shi were the mandate of heaven, they were the best way to seize this fortune. It was only when Ling Zhao's figure appeared above the abyss that Baijiro cried out in alarm and rushed to his side. Young master, how is it? Did you tell my elder sister that you killed her child? Do you plan to stay in the northern border and be the sovereign emperor, or leave with me? Ling Xiao smiled. He naturally would not tell Baijiro this secret. Although she had repeatedly asked Baijiro to kill Yi Fan, she was probably worried that the ancient glazed pagoda would fall into the hands of the Divine Master. But once she knew that Yi Fan had died at his hands, she might hate him. This woman was ruthless enough. This was also the reason why Ling Xiao did not completely trust her. Of course I have to follow you. Otherwise, you will be distracted and think about me. Baijiro hugged Ling Zhao's arm tightly and turned to make a face at Bai Qian and the nine-tailed fox empress. The northern border is no longer under the control of the sacred sect. If Qingqiu wants to, you can take the position of sovereign emperor. Ling Xiao said indifferently, but Bai Qian shook his head and smiled. Thank you for your kind intentions, but the people of Qingqiu have never had any desires. We have no plans to enter the world. If that's the case, goodbye. Ling Xiao nodded and held Baijiro's hand as they walked toward the 9th Phantom Mountain. Chapter 881. Ancestor, do you really want Jishi to stay by his side? The nine-tailed fox empress only turned to look at ancestor Bai Qian after Ling Xiao and Bai Qian disappeared. To be honest, the current nine-tailed fox empress had long lost her ambition. She just wanted the Green Mountains to be peaceful and there would be no more trouble. However, if Bai Zhishi followed Ling Xiao, she would most likely cause trouble in the world again. Although the nine-tailed fox empress did not know what this young man was planning, she felt inexplicably uneasy at the thought of the trouble Bai Zhiro had caused. Can you stop her? Let her be. Bai Qian shook his head slightly and looked into the distance. She did not sense any spiritual power fluctuations from Ling Xiao. However, since this young man could suppress the northern border under the nose of the saint, his temperament and means could be imagined. After all, Bai Zhiro was already a dead knot that Green Hill could not untie. In that case, what else was there to worry about? The demon race's situation was set, and Green Hill was lucky to escape. As for who would rise and fall in the Shenzhou continent, it could only be left to fate. On the peak of the Nine Nether Mountain, Ling Xiao and Bai Zhishi descended from the sky and walked into the main hall. At this moment, Nine Nether was discussing the northern border with the Nine Nether Mountain elders. When she saw Ling Xiao, she immediately stood up and bowed. Greetings, Lord. Issue an order. From today onwards, Green Hill will be the emperor race of the northern border, and thousands of demons will worship them. However, since the Fox Empress is willing to live in seclusion, then tell her to live in seclusion and not be disturbed by outsiders. Ling Xiao said indifferently and disappeared with Bai Zhishi. Yes, Nine Nether's pretty face trembled slightly, but she did not say anything in the end. In particular, Ling Xiao's last sentence made her guess even more. However, inexplicably, looking at the two disappearing figures, Nine Nether felt a little disappointed. She understood that since she was an emperor, it would be difficult for her to follow her young master. Although the title of Demon Emperor was something she yearned for and was also the hope of the Phoenix clan, she was gradually drifting away from him. With her young master's talent, sooner or later, he would step out of the Shenzhou continent and go to the Nine Heavens. Although Nine Nether's talent was top in the Shenzhou continent, it was difficult for her to compete with an immortal. She had obtained the country, but lost her loyalty. He gave me a chance. In the realm of Heavenly Palace, Ling Xiao helped Bai Zhishi settle down before turning around and flying toward the ancient forest where Meng Yuan was. The conversation between him and Bai Zhiro must have been heard by this saintess. As such, it was time for her to shine. Ling Xiao's silhouette landed at the edge of the ancient forest. He glanced at the clear spring in the middle of the forest, only to see the green carp leaping out of the water, appearing to be extremely happy. Ling Xiao smiled and took out a 6th-grade medicinal pill, crushed it, and threw it into the water. Then, he walked towards Gulin Shun. This time, Meng Yuan did not pretend to be cultivating. Instead, she stood in the ancient forest as if waiting for him to come. Help me kill him. Before Ling Xiao could open his mouth, Meng Yuan's beautiful face was already filled with killing intent. However, she knew a lot of Ling Xiao's secrets. With this young man's temperament, he would not easily believe her. Therefore, Meng Yuan had never really hoped that Ling Xiao would let her go. She only hoped that she could borrow his hand to kill the Divine Master and restore true peace to the Shenzhou. Oh, Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, but his heart was filled with emotions. Meng Yuan's temperament could be considered as indomitable. Even though she knew her identity and had turned against the Divine Master, she still had not truly submitted to him. I can't help you with this now. Although Zhou Yandao has deceived the world, his cultivation has already reached the God Emperor realm. How can I kill him? Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled, but his expression suddenly turned serious. However, if he goes into seclusion now, it's not like there's no chance. What do you want me to do? Meng Yuan took a deep breath. She knew that the young man in front of her was also a demon, but there was no better way to retreat. Moreover, demons were different. Zhou Yandao could even deceive and use his lover, killing the Divine Master, seizing power, and fooling the world. In comparison, Ling Xiao's actions could be said to be open and above board. In fact, His protection and care for his younger brother and his lover gave Meng Yuan an inexplicable feeling of anticipation. You should leave. Although I also want to kill this demon for the world now. I don't want to throw my life away. I will find Yi Qingchuan, the true divine master of the Shenzhou continent, and help her cultivate. Perhaps there will be a chance in the future. Ling Xiao sighed and waved his hand to open a realm. His expression was somewhat lonely. Yi Qingchuan? Meng Yuan's eyes seemed to be pondering. She looked deeply at Ling Xiao and her lips trembled slightly. In the end, she did not say a word and lifted her foot to leave. That's right. She was righteous, and he was a demon. They were supposed to be enemies in life and death. However, she suddenly felt a little reluctant. This was unreasonable. Meng Yuan, looking at the beautiful figure in the distance, Ling Xiao suddenly opened his mouth and called out softly. Meng Yuan's delicate body trembled slightly. She seemed to have mustered up a lot of courage before she turned to look at Ling Xiao. Is there anything else? If he asked me to stay, would I leave? I didn't know about your background before. This spiritual talisman can conceal the demonic aura on your body. Take it with you. Also, this voice transmission talisman. If you encounter any difficulties, tell me. The Divine Master is cunning and cruel. Be careful. As soon as he finished speaking, Ling Xiao waved his hand. The two spiritual talismans and the sacred sex divine token shone with golden light and fell into Meng Yuan's hands. I didn't do it for you. I just want to bring justice to the world. Beep. Congratulations to host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Note, Destiny Woman is the chosen one. Thank you. Meng Yuan gritted her teeth and hurriedly turned to walk toward the realm exit. At this moment, there were tears in her eyes. However, these tears were different from before. They were not tears of grievance. She did not want Ling Xiao to see her cowardly side. She just thought that the sunlight outside the realm was too glaring. At this moment, Ling Xiao raised his head and looked at the beautiful figure disappearing in front of him. A smile suddenly appeared on his face. That's right. Meng Yuan had not submitted to him. There were many risks in letting her out of the realm now. However, the four borders were now in Ling Xiao's hands. No matter what Meng Yuan wanted to do when she returned to Central Border, it was meaningless. Once Ling Xiao led the strong cultivators from the four borders to attack the sacred sect, how could the sacred sect not know about it? Therefore, although Ling Xiao seemed to have taken a dangerous step, it did not affect the entire game at all. If Meng Yuan really hated the Master God to the core, she would become a spy that Ling Xiao placed beside him. A spy that would wait for an opportunity to deliver a fatal blow to him at any time. Ling Xiao did not know Yi Qingchuan's whereabouts. However, she did not send him a voice transmission. She was either imprisoned or dead. Judging from her luck, the probability of her being imprisoned seemed to be higher. Before Meng Yuan left, Ling Xiao had already mentioned Yi Qingchuan. With Meng Yuan's intelligence, she would most likely inquire about Yi Qingchuan's whereabouts when she returned to the sacred sect. Ling Xiao only needed to wait for her news. Everything would fall into place naturally. Everything was ready. Now, he could only wait for sure to fuse with the dragon bone as soon as possible so that he could start the god-slaying war. Calculating the time, it seemed that Bai Ling had returned to the holy temple of Blood Soul for some time. However, he did not feel any new fluctuations from his soul seal. It seemed that the Holy Lord of Blood Soul was really difficult to deal with. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.